The approach to the playoffs continues tonight, where we welcome you to 3Y TV's coverage of race 23 of the Galaxy Cup Series from the Irish Hills and the Michigan International Speedway for 400 miles tonight. My name is Kenneth Bueno, joined by Andre Grandbush, along for the ride in the booth, and Carlos Costa pushing the buttons and producing this broadcast as we wane down this regular season. And Andre, these few races can really set the tone for how to approach the playoffs in a couple weeks' time. And especially here at Michigan, you got to try and push your luck at least the best way you can, especially since it's the Irish Hills.
Absolutely, and I think luck's a good way to put it. A lot of the drivers have been saying that in testing they found this track's racing a lot like a plate track, a lot of drafting, a lot of teamwork going on. You're going to see a lot of dynamics with the individual teams trying to work with one another and secure as many points as they can as we approach the playoffs here. And it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, lots of things to go into factor in tonight's event, and certainly the biggest topic of conversation surrounding this race, and especially the ones ahead, is how this playoff picture will look. And here is how they look and they stand after last week's event, race number 21. There's Bryson Hicksonbaugh, currently leading this point standings and currently pretty much secured into this playoff standing in a couple weeks' time. 9 wins, 59 playoff points, a lot to his name. He's going to try and carry that into the next couple weeks, especially once we get down to the playoffs. Cameron Stone in the second, Eric Wineland third. And Eric Wineland starts the train of drivers all the way down to 8th place that currently have a win this season. There's Cam Caldwell, Kevin Steele, Preston McRae, Christopher Hamann, Jonathan Dulaney. Tommy Amos starts the drivers without wins, but still have points enough to clinch themselves into the playoffs. And Danny Maya, Damaris Hickenbottom, and Josh Coppernow are the final drivers currently clinched in. But these final drivers right here, these couple drivers, Ryan Samuelson, Cody Bird, Brian Mabry, Zach Prost, and Stephen Bartlett, who's on the outside looking in. Those drivers need to have sort of a different strategy, Andre, if they really want to, secure themselves a spot into this playoffs, or somebody like the 19 of Stephen Bartlett, who's trying to secure himself in a spot, it being a couple points out.
Absolutely, and these drivers that are on the bubble, they're hungry. Cody Bird ended up finishing second in the truck race here for the Galaxy League, pushing his teammate to the win. And so he has proven that he can drive this track. If he could just get that win and try to secure it, that would be huge for him. Ryan Samuelson, he's been on the charge lately, getting some good finishes. These guys, they're hungry, they're chomping at the bit, and they are right there.
Yeah, and you really have to do all you can in these final races to try and get into this playoffs and fight for a Galaxy Cup Series championship at the end of the season. But there's still a lot of racing to go, and just a little bit of information about what we're seeing here in the track we're visiting in this venue, the Michigan International Speedway, located in Brooklyn, Michigan, exactly 2.0 miles, much like the track we've seen Auto Club. We've seen just a couple of the tracks that are very, very large, this being one of them. Lots of draft playing into effect here, especially high speeds. You're really staying on the throttle for most of this, pretty much a lap around here. You're staying on the throttle more than not, so lots of things to consider around the draft, and the drivers around you are currently 18 degrees into the turns. You're looking at an onboard shuttle, and the drivers trying to get their way around Michigan International Speedway. And track opened back in 1968, played host to numerous NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Gander RV and Outdoor Truck Series races. Much like they did just a couple minutes ago, just finished the NASCAR Cup Series race in the real life side of things with Kevin Harvick being the victor. So lots of fun here in Michigan. This track has a large history, and it really plays into effect on how these drivers really manage themselves going into tonight's event, especially with the draft playing such a big factor.
Right, and we were just on board there on the broadcast with John Delaney. He is a free agent. He got traded to another team and then left that team during the intermission between races, but he is one fast driver. He has been definitely a force to be reckoned with, and I think if he can get a good finish here tonight, there's going to be several teams that are going to try to snatch him up.
Of course, Jonathan Dulaney being one of those drivers who secured a win this season. He is ready to go for the playoffs, and you're looking at a couple more drivers now. We wrapped up the practice session here at Michigan International Speedway, getting set for a very, very lengthy race right here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're ready to cover for you right here on 3Y TV. And there's a checkered flag for warm-up, so we're pretty much secured on that end. Qualifying has already been pretty much wrapped up. So we have this grid for you. We're going to try to get to that as soon as possible. We're going to bring that up right now as they're gridding onto the racetrack. Jason Taylor with the fastest time at 37.747. He's currently first. I'm seeing Bryson Hicks involved, but it's all good. We're seeing Jason Taylor, Preston McRae. There's Eric Wineland into second. Those are the first rows right now into row number 1. And going into third, you see Bryson Hicks-Involved. Chris A. Wood, that rounds out row number 2, heading into row number 300.
My mic is hot. I'm having a bit of a technical issue. I can't see the graphic. I do apologize. If you want to carry this through, Ken.
All right. No problems. All right. So into row number 3 is Chris Wood and Dakota Nall. They will start 4th and 5th. And then to 6th and 7th, there's Dave Fuge Jr., Rich Petrucco, 37.832 for Dave Fuge in the number 4. The 27 with the 37.833. Then following behind is Kevin Steele and Jonathan Delaney. We just saw Delaney wrapping his warm-up lap around in practice. And then goes Daniel Fields, Ryan Samuelson, Eric Wineland, Matthew Woods, 13th, Brandon Pierce, 14th, 15th, 16th belongs to Christopher Hamann and Wayne Grass. And then goes 17th, 18th, Cameron Stone, Brian Mabry, 19th, 20th, Joseph Lester, Jack Durham, 21st, 22nd, Joseph Shiles, and Cam Caldwell. Again, one of the drivers we mentioned that is currently locked into the playoffs. And then goes Joseph Lester and Jack Durham. We kind of mentioned those drivers up there. Then Dalton Mobley, Damaris Hickenbottom, Danny Myatt, Randy Drumhiller, Zach Probst, Josh Coppernall. Rounding out the field is the 46 of Patrick Muse. So that rounds out pretty much all the drivers here at Michigan International Speedway. You see the field doubling up down to the backstretch as they will line up behind the iRacing official pace car. I'm glad to have you with us for coverage of the Galaxy Cup Series as we approach this playoffs and wind down the regular season even further. It's going to get a lot more intense as we bring you the coverage each time around. So there are the 2 drivers right into the first row. We'll line up side by side. We'll head into turn 3 and 4, and you see how much the banking works here at Michigan International Speedway. We're going to see a lot of lines being tested around. Lots of drivers trying to use the high side to save tires. Others using the bottom to their advantage down to the yellow line. Off of turn number 4, we will see the pace car dip down on a pit road for the first time tonight. We will have the green flag for you in just a moment. Here we go. The 63 and the rest of the field will line up behind them. The green flag is out. We're ready to go here in Michigan.
And they're getting underway. Bryson Hicks-Involved trying to get that start on the bottom, but the top row is going to get a good run. With the 31 and the 77 pushing one another to the front, but he's not quite going to get clear. That 63 getting the side draft into 1 and 2.
And early when the tires are cold and you have, the tires are fresh, you have the pack racing here at Michigan on board with Hicks-Involved as he currently gets a shove right now from the number 6 car. And you see how much draft plays into effect and all the drivers hooked on to one another. It's kind of like a super speedway race, if you will, just a little bit, as you're pretty much full throttle on the racetrack early in this running. As you see a bunch of drivers now swarming around. You see a couple of drivers. There's the 7 car into the bottom lane there, the 57 of the Stone. And you see side by side for the race. See down to turn 1. You see how much the pack racing is effective.
Absolutely. The draft is king here, and it almost looks like they were going to go 3 wide for a minute there for the lead. John Delaney absolutely trying to get to the front as he is knocking the bumper off that 63, giving him a good shot. But it is the 63's teammate behind them in the 57, Cam Stone, and I think you're going to see them try to link up as soon as they can.
Especially if you're teammates, you're going to want to try and work together if you get close to each other. And I mentioned, since it's like the super speedway race, you want to hook up with drivers who you know to trust. If you want to hook up with anyone and you want to try to draft with any other drivers, and you have, that comfortability with the driver that maybe you've raced with a couple of times, or maybe even your teammates with, or maybe friends with outside of the racetrack, you might want to try and hook up with them as soon as possible to try and gain some positions out on the racetrack. And here might be about to pull the race lead. Down to the bottom goes the 57 of Cameron Stone. He's going to try to make the move down on the inside, easily gets it off turn 4.
That was a textbook move by Cam. I'm surprised he went for the lead that early. I kind of thought he might link up with his teammate there, but they're not out of the woods yet. They got the 31 fighting back on that bottom side. That is Eric Wineland in the 31. And he is now charging to the point on the bottom. Looks like he's going to get clear of that 57.
And we see this so many times here at Michigan International Speedway. You see the drivers loop all the way down to the bottom, try to send it all the way through the corner and get the advantage off the corner. Kind of like a slide drop a little bit, but not really a crossover for many drivers. I know that, you know, when you're trying to hold on for a 200 lap race, you have to try and be conservative as much as you can. You know, you have to try and keep your car cool, try to kind of keep your tires under you, and try not to use your equipment. But right now, these drivers are using their equipment to their advantage. 3 wide for the race lead. 3 drivers all the way down, spreading each lane through. You see Jonathan Delaney trying to make a move to the high side and trying to hook up with the 31 right to the high side, right up against that wall. They're going to work together into turn 3. This is chaotic.
And here comes the 7 of Wayne Grass. He has been fast in practice and now charging his way to the front of the field after starting somewhere around mid-pack. And he is going to try to get the draft off to 57 and link up with him. That could be the move to make.
The 2 Ford Mustangs currently occupying first and second. And then you see the 2 pair of Camaros back there. Actually, a quartet of Camaros right in that group. They're pretty much side by side all the way through until you reach, I believe, the number 3 of Mabry. Those drivers are pretty much all together crunched up, and you see how much really the draft is so prominent here at Michigan. And you know, as this race starts to wind down, tires start to become a huge part of the conversation. You have to start thinking about how to manage your tires over the course of this run. When you have, you know, longer green flag runs where you have to really conserve your car more and you have to keep the tires warm, you have to keep the tires fresh, or else you might lose a bunch of ground if you use it up too quickly. And that's something that we might see over the course of this evening. You see the 36 all by himself. He's kind of falling back of this main group, and nonetheless still trying to hit his mark. Still an early race. You're still got a lot of action to go.
Oh yeah, plenty of time to get some racing in here. But you hit the nail on the head with the tires, man. When those tires start to wear at this track, the car gets really tight. It just does not want to rotate through those corners. And it seems like the more you fight the car early on, the quicker you're going to burn those tires off. So I think a lot of these guys, especially the ones that are a little bit further back and not really fighting for the lead, are probably going to take it easy and just conserve their equipment. And that's going to come into play within about 20 to 30 laps here, where you're going to see some of these front runners that have been fighting it out just have tenths come off their lap times and just drop and drop as these guys in the back make their way to the front. So it's going to be fascinating.
And choosing lanes is also a big thing when the tires start to fall off, because when you're on the fresh tires, you can try to get all the way down to that yellow and white line, the yellow line all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, and you can try to use that to your advantage, and most likely it will work on the fresh tires. You'll have that advantage, much like at a bunch of other tracks, and more comparatively to Auto Club. You know, tracks like these, so large, over 2 miles, you have such wide sweeping corners that, you know, you can try to use any lane you wish. And we see some drivers using higher lines. You see the 31 using a higher groove than, let's say, the 9 of Jonathan Delaney all the way to the bottom. So when those tires start to wear out, you have to kind of lay off the throttle a bit more, and maybe we'll see drivers start to shoot up the lanes, or possibly just try their best to stay where they are, and you might not get the best run all the way down to the line as you would all the way to the wall. Looking at Cameron Stone currently in this lead, and as soon as these laps started, as soon as these 10 laps pretty much went by, you saw how less crowded it got. You saw how crowded it was through the early portion of that run, and as soon as it started to wane down, you see a bunch of drivers start to lay off, start to get a little more comfortable where they are, try to develop their lanes early in this run. And you see drivers pretty much sweeping out. There's that first group, and there's a smaller second group here, just about 4 drivers in that second group. Back there, you see a couple drivers here, the number 30 car, and so. You see these drivers. I think they might be laying back on this run, Andre, especially to save tires or possibly just stay within their run, especially if they anticipate a caution coming up.
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, you're going to see these guys try and conserve their tires, the ones that are further back, not really fighting for the lead. But as you said, they're getting a little bit more separated now, and that is affecting their lane choice, I think, because now they're not being strong-armed into running a specific line. They can move up the track and start to conserve and that's definitely going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, you really have to try and save your tires as much as you can. And I know that us fellow iRacers, you kind of have that, idea in your head planted already when you go to these tracks in official, going A fix, going a B fix, maybe C fix, and you try to use that to your advantage, as we have a battle for the race lead now. The 77 of Mobley is now taking over the race lead. That's Dalton Mobley, and the 77 are currently sporting a Crest is King, a very nice paint scheme there. But he took the lead just a couple of laps ago, and now still fighting with the 57 of Cameron Stone and trying to make that work, and he does. So new race leader, Dalton Mobley in the 77.
And what a move that was, just right around the 57 like he was standing still. I think Dalton, I think he might have a little bit better conservation there on his tires, just the speed he had going through that corner.
Got an update from the 17 of Christopher Hammond. He is currently in the garage. Some issues there for the 17. So not a good look for him right now. He is one of the drivers who's currently locked in. He's in top 10 right now. So probably not much to worry about considering he locked into the playoffs. But again, even in any race, with that competitive edge, you don't really want to exit early. You don't want to have any issues. You don't want to be held back by anything that happens within the race car or anything out of your control. So unfortunate there for the 17 of Hammond. He's going to try to work himself back next week. But we're looking for a battle a little bit farther back, as we see another battle for the race. See, Cameron Stone is trying to take that back away from the 77. But
got a little loose there on the bottom.
Yeah. We got a bunch of drivers trying to use their lanes up, and now single file, and you see the 31 of Wineland now swooping to the bottom of the 57. And we've seen all these drivers, pretty much this top four, all together since the drop of the green flag. And we haven't seen some other drivers. We saw the 7 of Grassy also tried to make a move, but these four are the most prominent right now early on in this run.
You're absolutely right, and I think you're just going to continue to see this revolving door that we kind of have where they're trading off the lead, because the draft is just so powerful that even if you've conserved your tires a lot and you have really good speed, that draft is just going to help people to stay right with you and even get the slingshot to get around you. But it looks like Wineland's going to go for the lead on the high side as the 77 loses his momentum on the bottom. He's going to drop down to fourth. That's going to put Wineland in the lead, Cam Stone in second, and finally the number 6 up into P3, and he is looking to get around the 57.
And the 77 was now under pressure from Cam Caldwell. Looks to have gotten around him, so no issues there for the 77. Drops back to fourth. He's going to have to hit the reset button in a couple laps' time and try to work himself back up to this race lead. But meanwhile, there's still the 31 back to the race lead. So first time he's leading laps tonight, of course. And then the 57 of Stone, who's been up there all race long. A pair of Mustangs and a pair of Camaros. It seems to be the same trend ever since we dropped this green flag. And now we're seeing a little bit of a battle. I think 3 wide there with your points leader. Bryson Hicksonball had a little bit of issues there.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of that 3 wide racing here, but it's kind of interesting to see it happen this early on, especially with this much separation. B. Hicks, obviously, I think just taking it easy this week. He's got a commanding points lead, and I think he just wants to preserve as much of that as possible. There's no reason to make some crazy moves quite yet. But, yeah, you can see he's having quite the battle there with the 7 and the 12 car. And he's trying to work his way back up.
And you mentioned, he can be conservative. He can, even if he falls back, even if he has a little bit of a setback, it won't really affect him that much. 9 wins in this season, 59 playoff points, so dominant for Bryson Hicksonball. He has been on it this season, and he has not let go of the gas pedal. In terms of that, as you see, he's now under pressure from what looks to be the 12 of Cam Caldwell, as well as the 7 of Wayne Grass, as now the 57 is just taking back the race lead with help from John Delaney down to the bottom. So he's going to try and lead some more laps and get some more points to his name in terms of this race. And now the 31 falls back just a couple spots, now side by side with the 77. So those two working together. And now Bryson Hicksonball is going to try to get up there. And you see a little bit of a battle behind them. That's the 7 of Wayne Grass along with the 04. So they're going to try and work together on that front and try to battle for position there. But when you're battling so much and you're side by side, especially depending on what lane you're in, it goes back to the tire conversation. you're battling so much, you're going side by side, you're using the bottom, you're trying to get around, and then all of a sudden maybe you start to use your tires a little bit too much, and then that could, set the race back for you. You start to fall back a couple of spots, or maybe, if everyone does the same thing as you, then you can kind of just stay where you are. But when you're battling, you really have to think about that and think about how much you're pushing the car. Maybe you want to push it a little bit further. Maybe you're not pushing it enough, but we're just going to see how that works through the rest of this race. As there's Kevin Steele by himself, single file. He was just in a battle with a couple drivers back there, but I think he's kind of found his footing, just staying single file for the most part.
Yeah. Yep. The 04 seems to be having some connection issues down there. That's going to be detrimental to him if he were to blink out of the race. But you were talking about Kevin Steele, and I think Kevin sometimes is just consistency incarnate. Even if he's not the fastest car on the track, he's always lurking somewhere near the front, and he's got that 44 machine dialed in, and I think you're going to see him move up as the night progresses.
Yeah, lots of things to see, especially with Kevin Steele. Consistency so key when you're a driver looking for, playoff spots, and just good runs in general. If you're just keeping yourself consistent, trying to find your footing the best way you can, not really rushing anything, staying in your own lane, trying to keep your own pace, that could really help you in the long run, because when you're trying to get those finishes, you're getting top 5s, you're getting top 10s, you're staying where you are, and you're getting those points that really help you to a possible championship or to a playoff run. So lots of help for Kevin Steele, who is currently 5th in the point standings right now. Those points help significantly, especially when the stages end and you get playoff points, and you get points in general just to your name. You have that to help you out just a little bit more as the race progresses and as the season goes down. So you're seeing a couple of drivers now just single file, as Bryson Hicksonball has moved up to 2nd, so he's gained a couple spots out for these guys battling together. So lots of things to see for Bryson Hicksonball. I think even though Bryson Hicksonball is so dominant, 9 wins, even still just on it, even still just trying the best he can and still being aggressive. And when you have 9 wins and when you're locked in, you're going to try a little bit more if you can.
Yeah, I know Bryson Hicksonball pretty well, and at the start of the race, he might say, I think I'm going to take it easy today, or we're just going to try to do what we can. But then as soon as he has that win in sight, as soon as he has that taste of victory in his mouth, it is full send from there on out. I don't think he has take it easy in his vocabulary. So he's going to try to link up with his teammate there in the 57. And if they can get some good bump drafts going on down the backstretch, that might break them away from the 3rd place car of Wineland in the 31. If they can break away and get him out of drafting distance, that would be huge.
Kind of a deceiving statement there for Bryson Hicksonball. I'm going to take it easy, and then just goes flat out and goes for the win and takes wins when he can. So that's the aggressivity of drivers, especially any driver in general. You have that aggressive edge. You want to go for wins. You want to gun for that and position if you can. But I got a little bit of just a welcome at least, and I guess a greeting from Chris R down the YouTube chat. Says, I'd like to say hi to the 3YTV guys. So hope you are doing great. Hope you are enjoying the action here on the Galaxy Cup Series. We hope that you're having at least a little bit of fun watching these guys whip around Michigan Speedway, as now we've had this 3-car train now separate from the rest of the top 2. Basically this 5-car group separating all the way back to Cam Caldwell, and then you reach the 04, and then Kevin Steele, the 7 of Wayne Grass. These 3 and these 5 pretty much specifically have now gapped themselves from the rest of this field, and then looking all the way back in this group, and then you fall from that Toyota Camry near the back of this group, and then you go all the way back a couple spots back, where you see a couple drivers just a little bit more separated, but nonetheless still trying to keep the race intact, not really pushing the issues. They're still very early in this race, and 200 laps, you have to start looking at things in the bigger picture. When you have such a large, lap count, when there's so many laps in this race, you have to start thinking about maybe keeping yourself a little bit more calm, maybe not so aggressive early, maybe trying the different things, especially if you're by yourself on the racetrack, just pretty much experimenting all by yourself.
Absolutely, Ken. Now, a little bit further back in the field, if we look at Kevin Steele, he's in a battle right now with the 7 car of Grass and the 04 car, and there they go.
Got a car around the 04 who we saw had connection issues, and he is around the racetrack. The 36 is also sliding down the grass. First cautioning of the evening belongs to the 04, goes around in the middle of the start-finish line. We're going to try to take a replay and see exactly what the reason was behind this yellow And right there, I think he might have had the outside wall off of turn 4, and that might have unsettled the car, and then try to dip back low, might have had contact there, and then goes up into the outside wall. And then the 36 also gets collected in this as well. I'm going to be curious to see how that went down. Not the 36. It was one of the cars further back in that second group of Toyota Camry. We'll just try to take a replay and see exactly what went down there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the connection issues that the 04 has been suffering all night was kind of the cause of that. I think he might have got net coded there with another car where the game thought they made contact when they really didn't. It's unfortunate when race night rolls around and your internet service provider just doesn't want to work with you there, but I think we all seen this one coming for a while there with all the blinking. It's just real unfortunate for him. Got to be frustrating this close to the playoffs. Nothing that he did wrong. Just complete unfortunate circumstance.
Unfortunate for the 04 there. And just as we had that update, as soon as this yellow came out, and as soon as pretty much that wreck happened, the 17 of Hammond just returned back to the racetrack. So nice to see him back, putting some laps around. He came back just a little bit after he was in the garage for some issues. So he's going to try and, muster what he has for right now, considering his setback. And early in this race, it could start to help him if we start to get more yellows down the road. So first caution tonight, we already saw the preview of what's happening pretty much down there. As you see the field led by the 57 go down pit road. It looks like everyone's going to try and take service, try to get some tires and fuel to their car, and try to set themselves up for the rest of this stint if we have a longer green flag run. So the 57 lead them down pit road. They're going to get service here very soon.
Yeah, and I can't say I'm surprised that this many drivers have opted to come down pit road. We are on lap 28. And that might not seem like much, but on iRacing, as the tires wear, a lot of these drivers want to get some good years, fresh good years as soon as they can. So this might shake up the starting order a little bit, depending on the pit speed here. But, going back to that incident there, I really think that is not what drivers like the 77 of Dalton Mobley wanted to see. I think Mobley was doing a heck of a job conserving his tires. And now, unfortunately, with this yellow that has been thrown, that tire conservation doesn't quite mean anything.
Yeah, and that strategy pretty much gets thrown out the window. As you saw the battle off of pit road, goes to the 57. So he started in first, and going down pit road, he's going to lead him off pit road with Eric Wineland behind him and Jonathan Dulaney. So those drivers are getting out just right now. And pretty much this top 4 have been the talking point all race long over these 28 laps. Pretty much these drivers working all together and functioning in the draft and battling for position, whether it be first, third, second, fourth, maybe even in the top 5. We've seen them put on a show very early on. But like you mentioned, Andre, when you have the tire strategy, when you're working on strategy and then a yellow comes out in the midst of nowhere, it's thrown out the window and you kind of have no other option but to stick with it and try another different plan, or maybe go for a plan B, or just try to reset your entire game plan when it comes to attacking the track and attacking this race. As looks like the 17 of Hammond is back in the garage. Not good news for him. Hopefully he'll be able to get back on track soon. Still issues for the 17. So I thought that might have been the solution there, to be back on track. Unfortunate to see him out of this one.
Yeah, just a rough night for him. You hate to see it. But the lights are off on the pace car, so we're going to make one final pace lap around Michigan. And it looks like Cam Stone has opted to take the inside line. I'm kind of surprised by that. All night, I think we've seen a little bit more grip on the high side, and the outside line just been getting those runs, especially on the initial start there. So maybe the inside line is going to pay off for him. Maybe it won't, and we're going to find out.
Base lights are off. Field will be in the hands of Cameron Stone once we reach this green flag off of turn number 4. Pair of Mustangs, pair of Camaros behind them. We've pretty much seen this all night. The 2 Mustangs leading the field, and then all the Camaros swarming behind. You pretty much go all the way Camaro until you reach a couple rows back with that the bright red and white car there all the way to the outside near the wall. That's the next Mustang, and pretty much everyone in between is a Chevy Camaro. So that's lots of Chevy power here in Michigan, and fairly so. I mean, Detroit is the home for General Motors and Ford Motor Company. So I think it's fairly fitting we see Ford and Chevy up in the front dominating this race very early on. So here is the 57 of Cameron Stone. He will step on the gas pedal as soon as the pace car goes down pit road. He'll have discretion to lead the rest of the field to this green flag. So double up all the way back. We're going to go back green on the first restart here in Michigan. Cameron Stone leads them early.
and he gets a really good jump there, putting nearly 3 car lengths on the car behind. But will he be able to maintain that as the 63 is now pushing Wineland, trying to get him up there, saying, come on, buddy, let's go. And beneath them, it's the 6 of Dulaney, strong all night, and he's made that bottom line work a couple times so far tonight. Is he going to be able to get clear of the 31? Just barely as he slides up in front. It's the Cruz P2.
And those fresh tires is going to give him a huge draft up to the 57. Going to go low and try to take over the race lead for the first time here tonight. Side by side into turn 3 and 4. He's got help from the fellow Chevy right behind him. Give the lead to the 6 of Jonathan Dulaney. He's going to try and take this lead and lead a couple of laps as Ryan Hicksenball is going to try to help him down the bottom.
The free agent to the lead, that's got to be a good feeling for him. And he's got to know that there's teams out there looking at him, trying to pick him up. So we're getting chaotic back there, nearly 3 wide, a little bit of contact going into the corner with Wineland and the 77. But Bryson Hicksenbaugh now on the bottom of the 57, trying to make that pass down low. Can he follow in the tire tracks of the 6 and make the same move to get up to P2 around the 57?
On the bottom, there's Mobley, Grass, and Steele. Those 3 drivers working together. And then you see the train all the way to the outside as now the 77 will make it 3 wide to the bottom. Bryson Hicksenball down into the middle. We'll see how he handles that one. Going to fall back a couple of spots. Nowhere to go as now we got another battle for the race lead. The 57 back to the bottom of the racetrack. He's going to take the race lead. It's almost contact between the guys back there.
Man, this is crazy. Mobley is slow. He has lost pace there. Not sure what's going on with him. But now the 9 car. We're looking at a replay now. What happened?
Not sure whether there was contact there. You saw him go all the way to the bottom of Bryson Hicksenball, and you see him start to lose ground here. And I think he might have lost the car a little bit and had to check up there and lost a bunch of ground. And when you lose that ground, when you mess up even just a little bit, the whole field freight trains behind you with the draft that they have. So now the 77 is going to have to work himself back up to this main group where he has been along this first stint. So he's going to try and work himself back up. But some new faces we're seeing up here. There's the 9 car of Lester, of Joseph Lester. He started a little bit farther back in the field. He's gained 16 spots since the drop of the green flag now into this first group. So great to see him. Yeah, he's one of the largest movers here. And, you know, great to see him move up into this draft. And when you have that draft to your advantage, lots of moves can be made, especially with this 9 car. So great early run for him right now, lap 33.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen that he's kind of got a long run plan, it seems like. So as the night goes on, who knows, maybe he's going to get up there and lead some laps as he has been on the move all race long so far. But here comes the 7 car again, as well as Kevin Steele making his way towards that front pack as we have less separation now due to that caution. And that is making a lot more overtake possibilities available to these guys. And Kevin seems to have really taken advantage of that as the 7 car is going to get real close to this bumper there. They're on the charge.
Lots of guys trying to make moves early, and then you see the 9 of Lester there, and you see a bunch of drivers further back here. You see Jack Durham also in this group. You know, Preston McRae is in here. A bunch of drivers now, and of course the 77 who had issues to the bottom, so he's already on the move trying to get back to this group. But again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, as soon as we went green, fresh tires, you have the draft, the field is all packed together. You're going to see lots of pack racing.
Yes, you are. 3 wide for a minute there with the 217 and the 7 and the 53. That is Preston McRae in the 53. Haven't seen too much of him tonight, but he is making some moves, making his presence known. And man, the 217 and the 7 were absolutely locked coming through the straightaway there, pushing one another. That was some good momentum as they're going to shoot around the 53 on the bottom, it looks like now, Ken.
And lots of help. And Andre, I really want to ask you this as soon as we start to get over this run.
7. Problems with the 7. And yeah, more contact. 91's going around.
Oh, the 91 around down to the bottom of the racetrack. That might trigger a yellow, and it does. So second yellow is out. Lap number 36 belongs to the 91. We're going to take a replay and see exactly what happened there. That was Chris Wood in his Ford Mustang, and you saw the 7 slow down all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, but help from what looks to be the 36 there, and goes around all the way to the bottom of the racetrack. And usually iRacing does not necessarily call the cautions if you're all the way down to the apron, but I think the admins saw that and had enough. As soon as that happened, the caution comes out. So no really connection to the 7 really. just the 36 and the 91 getting tagged together.
So I'm seeing a lot of right side damage on the 91. I'm wondering if maybe he didn't bounce off the wall down into the 36, and that's what kicked that off. Because if you look at his passenger side door, yep, yeah. So the 36 actually bounced off the wall there.
Kind of similar for what we saw with the 04 off of turn 4, where he smacked the wall and then went down and collected another car with him. That's exactly what happened here with the 91 and the 36. So another yellow here early in this race. We had a little bit of a shorter stint this time around. We had that more than 20 lap stint in that first portion of the race, and now a second yellow coming out as the rest of the field will be led down pit road by the 31. I think everyone's trying to keep themselves conservative. Actually, no, 2 drivers stay out. I think the 77 might be one of them.
If the 77 stayed out, that's an interesting move. So the 12, the 77, and the 37 have opted to stay out. That is going to be... That's going to make things really interesting on this restart here. But yeah, you said that incident looked real similar to the first caution, and you're not wrong. That is something that happens at a track like Michigan. When the tires start to wear, the car gets tight, it just gets harder and harder to keep it off that outside wall, because when you do make contact, it's going to push you back down, and it's chaos from there. But unfortunate break for those involved. Not too much damage to any of the cars involved. Definitely going to slow them down a bit, but it's not a end of their day situation. But yeah, what's going on in pit road, Ken?
And Delaney comes off pit road first. So interesting call by that the 6 car. He was able to... I'm getting confused with the 9 because it's the Chase Elliott number backwards. It's pretty much flipped upside down. But the 6 car of John Delaney comes back first off pit road. He's got a couple of cars to get through before he gets back to the race lead. Those are the 3 drivers who stayed out on the racetrack. So I think they might have a different plan in mind when it comes to the tire strategy, maybe expecting more yellows, or maybe expecting something else to come out of the fold to help them in the longer run. But I've seen this so many times, and I've seen this a couple of times, calling races is always the conversation that happens. It's old tires versus new tires. You have the drivers that are on the older set that are, a little bit worn out, a little bit more, they're a little bit slower, and then you have the drivers on the fresh rubber trying to charge them down. And we've seen this so many times. I've seen this so many times personally, and I'm sure you probably have, Andre, where you clash with the fresh tires and the guys on the old tires, and you see maybe some drivers getting held up. You see maybe some drivers, falling back, and then you see how much that affects that race. But you look at the race summary down in lap number 38. We've had 2 cautions, 6 laps under the yellow flags. We got the 1 to green signal now. Currently, our average pace is about 191. So very, very quick around Michigan. You're going pretty much upward of 200 miles per hour there. And Jack Durham currently has the fastest lap of 37.805. We've had 11 lead changes. So 39 laps, 11 lead changes, a 200-lap race. I'm expecting to see way more throughout here.
Oh, yeah, it's been an action-packed race so far, and it's only going to get crazier as the laps wind down and time runs out. Something to note, the 04 did come back down pit road to get some more damage repaired, trying to salvage his night best he can. But, man, you're right. It's going to be a clash between the drivers who pitted and the drivers who didn't. I don't think the speed difference is going to be anything too massive. We didn't make too many green flag laps, but it's definitely going to be there, and it's going to be a challenge for drivers like Bryson Hixenbaugh and Wineland, who did opt to take those 4 fresh Goodyears, to find their way around them.
That's a great point, Andre. You have not so many laps. I said that it wasn't such a long run, so maybe it won't affect the drivers who stayed out as much as it probably would if, let's say, it were a 35-lap run, or maybe like the 28-lap run that we saw early in this race. So I don't think it affects them too much, but it's just about what we're going to see as soon as they reach this green flag. The 77 will lead them to the green with the 37 right alongside him. Camaro Mustang lead the field to green back in Michigan.
Looks like the 38 might have spun his tires there a little bit. Some checkup on the bottom row. That is Brandon Pearson, 38 car.
And there's Wineland to the bottom of the racetrack. One of the drivers on the new tires along with John Delaney. Now they're on the charge to try and get to these top 2 using the bottom all the way to the yellow line. They're going to get to the inside of the 37. Now it's just a factor of how well these 2 can handle around the drivers on the fresh tires. Maybe make way, or maybe try to fight for position for points as much as they can. 2x2 action all the way down turn 3 and 4.
Meanwhile, the 77, Dalton Mobley, trying to lead his first lap of the race. Is he going to be able to hold off the number 6 car? doesn't quite look like it. No, it's going to be the 6 car that leads the lap, unfortunately, for the 77. But he's not out of it yet. He's going to be able to fall in line in 3rd here and try to gather it up.
He's going to fall back to the 9 of Lester, Joseph Lester there, who picks up to 3rd. It's the highest position he's been this entire race, and almost contact between the 31 of Weiland and John Delaney. You saw that through the back bumper of the 6 car. That's going to stall him a little bit more. So new race leader, the 31 of Weiland, back to the race lead off turn 4.
What a move that was, but man, side by side for 2nd place. That 9 car will not be denied. He's been on the charge all night, and now he is looking to try and secure P1 and lead some laps tonight.
So these 3 drivers are all drivers who went down pit road. The 77 and the 37 continue to fall back through this top 10. Dalton Mobley falls to 6th right now under pressure from Cameron Stone and Bryson Hicksonball, also, and the 37 also behind there as well, going to have a challenge with the 45. But, you know, we're seeing that, and, you know, they're actually keeping pace for the most part, at least through the high side. They're trying to keep the draft, and even on the older tires, when you have draft, it plays such a huge role, and it can really keep you where you are rather than kind of push you back further down the order. And I don't think that that tire difference really played a big deal. I think that it kind of helped them. It kind of decreased their chances of staying up front, but at least help them stay within this main group for the most part instead of falling all the way back. So they're trying to work together on the high side, as now there's the pressure from the 45, the 7th car, who was not involved in the last caution, but stayed all the way low, as you're on board with Preston McRae. And one of the drivers we've looked at, who's a playoff driver, currently has 1 win to his resume, and trying to make things work around this week.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, even if the tire wear is holding the 77 back a little bit, even if he's kind of regretting his choice, you got to commend the strategy. You got to commend trying different things, because sometimes that's what wins races, is, you know, doing what other people aren't doing. So he's right now sitting in P9 on the high side, trying to navigate this traffic. And, you know, he's holding his own up there. The 7 car, you were talking about him. Again, he has been up front, kind of making his presence known. He was affected by the incident earlier on. Like you said, he wasn't in it, but he did have to go all the way down low. And now he's being challenged by the 21 car. I'm sorry, the 217 of Jack Durham. And they're going to battle it out. And further up front, it is Cam Stone and Bryson Hicksonbach trying to run down the lead pack, getting a little bit closer. But, man, I'm not sure any of these guys have anything for Wineland. He is absolutely dominating up there.
Well, here, the number 9 might have something to say about that. He's going to try to dip all the way 3 wide to the bottom of the racetrack under Cam Caldwell and Jonathan Delaney. Doesn't seem like it's going to work in the end. He's going to try to file back within these guys and stay in the draft. Actually, still to the bottom of John Delaney. So try to work himself back to this high side where the draft has pretty much been up there the entire time. So we'll try to see that as the night approaches. But one of the drivers I want to talk about, Jonathan Elardo. He is here into this top 10, and we haven't seen him much all race, but now into a battle with what looks to be Bryson Hicksonbach and the 57 of Cameron Stone. So a great run for him early on, currently holding the 6th spot down the grid and trying to fend off the 50, the 63, the 217, and the 7 behind. Lots of drivers filing around, but still side by side for second.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that 45 is on the move. You're absolutely right. He is right on the bumper of Cam Stone as now. He's looking down low. Going to maybe try to get a little bit of a side draft, maybe not, but going into 1 and 2, he's going to have that bottom line, and he's going to be able to use the draft of the cars ahead, and he is clear of the 57.
And while these two start to battle, if you're the 31, and as the 12 gets loose all the way down the bottom, he's going to have to check up and wait for the drivers to the top side and file himself back in. But as the drivers start to battle, if you're the 31 of Wineland, you love to see that in your rearview mirrors. If they go side by side, 3 wide, and battling for position, your lead is only going to start to grow even further as they start to hold each other up in the draft. And 3 wide in contact with the 217 is around.
Through the infield grass, he just Dukes of Hazzarded it over that bump, caught a little bit of air, but he has gathered it up. I think he's going to be able to save it.
And he had it straight off of there. It looked very scary for the 217 of Durham. Tried to get down 3 wide. That was Cameron Stone in the middle. Contact. I don't think there was enough real estate to keep him there, but what a save by the 217 to keep that straight. So no yellow on the racetrack. We're staying green as here's another look at it from an aerial shot. There was contact between him and the 57 for sure. That sent him down to the grass. It looked detrimental, but he was able to keep it straight. The only thing that pretty much worsens that is he's falling back through this group and not going to have draft.
Yeah, he's definitely out of the pack now. Luckily, we are coming up on the stage and shortly. So if he can keep himself from going a lap down, that's going to save his night, I think. Oh, contact! 45 and the 9. The
contact with the 9. The 9 is around, trying to keep it straight. Will it be enough to save the car? And it is. Although hard right side damage will stall his run. Everyone's scrambling to get around him, but he keeps it straight. Another almost yellow we've had there. We'll take a replay. I think it might have been contact with Elardo, and it is going off of turn 2. I just watched up the track, got into him, and then you see the 9 pretty much trying to keep it straight. Might have had a little help from the wall to keep him from going around, but hard damage to the 9 who was making moves early in this race and now has to try and fix his damage and get back around. As another look from the cockpit, there's the contact, and into the wall he goes.
Yeah, the 9 car has opted to bring it down pit road. He's going to try to get some of that damage repaired. Man, I said it before, I'll say it again. Once these cars get tight, they want to shoot up the track, and you just keep seeing incidents like that. So, unfortunate break for the 9 car. He was absolutely on the move earlier tonight, nearly leading some laps and making his presence known up front. But we are now 10 laps to go in the stage, Ken.
Yes, sir. 10 laps to go until the stage ends at lap 60. Wineland currently still commanding this field, and ever since the incident with Elardo and the 9 car, that's going to set pretty much the rest of the field back a couple seconds between this group and the second group all the way back to Cameron Stone. There's John Delaney and Bryson Hickson all battling for second place, so they're going to try and work around and try to gain position as the 31 might be wanting to. As we got a caution on the racetrack, might have involved the driver down there. I saw the 91 there, but no incident there.
Ryan Samuelson in the 16, I do believe, was the cause of that. He got a little bit of damage on his left rear. We're going to take a look at the replay, see what happened.
Oh boy, and that was contact with the 91. I thought he might have gone around to the bottom just to get around, but contact with him, so insult to injury for the 91. There's the 16 of Samuelson getting loose off of turn 2, going down into, and you see the 91's view, and just an innocent bystander there, really nowhere to go, and just kind of have to hold on for the ride and try to keep your car as stable as possible. Unfortunate for Chris Wood here tonight.
I can't overstate how impressive it is that he kept that thing off the inside wall. As hard as he got hit, to be able to recover that car and keep it straight is not something that I think too many drivers would be able to do. So good job by him.
And you see the 16 trying to keep himself straight. I don't think he has too much damage to that Chevrolet Camaro, but nonetheless, that's going to stack up the field for a third caution here tonight. Here's the cockpit view, just loose off turn 2, and that was enough to send him into the 91. And you see him trying to whip that car back straight, using the brake to his advantage, and he gets it back straight. But I can't really try to explain what happened with those last 2 incidents before this caution. You saw the 217 go there, and you saw Elardo and the 9 get into contact, and no yellow this time. I think it might be tough for them to see the yellow come out this time around with another incident. But here's Wineland leading the rest of the field down pit road.
I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that we have got this many drivers coming down pit road when you're this close to the end of the stage. I thought we might have seen a few guys try and stay out just to see. As Wineland overshoots his pit, I think that may end up giving the lead to the 63 because he had to put it in reverse and back up just that little bit, Ken.
Yeah, and all that costs you so much time, and even though those little tenths of a second really can benefit you or be detrimental, we're going to see the battle off pit road, and it looks to be Wineland loses a couple spots. He falls back behind Cam Caldwell. It looks like John Delaney will lead them back off of pit road. He will take the green flag in first position as the rest of the field stacks behind them. I saw Kevin Steele behind this group, and there is the 9 staying out on the racetrack. That was he's one of the drivers that stayed out, of course, due to the incident with Jonathan Elardo. So unfortunate to see him, have trouble because he was doing so well in this race before that yellow came out. And we'll just have to see how that works out as the rest of the field comes back. But like we saw, this was, I think, a longer run this time around to the stage. The next stage ends at lap number 120. So we still have a long way to go until we reach the end of that stage, another 60-lap stint before we get over to that. And we still haven't concluded this first stage, so we might have a little bit of a couple-lap shootout before we get to the stage here, Andre.
You're absolutely right. Now, this might be a blessing in disguise for the 9 car as he pitted only about 3 or 4 laps prior. So he's got fresh tires. Like you said, he was able to stay out. He's a lap down. So he is, he's a lap down, but he is in position to get the wave around as he goes around the pace car, and he's going to be back on the lead lap. So blessing in disguise for him, but we're 1 to go. Lights are off on the pace car, Ken.
So John Delaney and the 57 of Cameron Stone, the 2 drivers who have been mostly dominant, apart from the 31 of Wineland down. He will start into the second row on the bottom, along with Cam Caldwell to his outside. And we see Kevin Steele back into this group as well. The 7 of Wayne Grass is back into the picture. The 37, and I think the 77, who we saw stay out not too long ago, they really didn't fall too back off. So I think now that these drivers have got the laps on their tires, and now they're a little bit more worn out, I think they might be on another level playing field until we get to this stage, and until we can, I believe the rest of the field will try to go down pit road or at least stay where they are. So we'll just have to see how that works out. So now a level playing field for all these drivers together, and we'll just have to see how that shakes out. So Delaney, Stone, Wineland, Caldwell, and then Hickson, Ball, Steele, Grass, the 37, and pretty much the rest of the field behind that 77. We'll find out 2 by 2. So we'll see how this ends up with these couple of laps that'll lead down to the stage 1 ending. It's going to be a little bit of a shootout to see who tries to get those playoff points to their advantage and which drivers can try to use that to benefit them as soon as we get to the couple races ahead into the Galaxy Cup Series playoffs. So base car down pit road, of course, Delaney and the 57 will lead them to green to the restart zone. The green flag is back out. Another restart here in Michigan. Delaney leads them all.
And what a statement it would be if Delaney, the free agent, could win this stage. He's definitely got a good start there, as the leaders have done all night long on that bottom line. But, man, he's not without pressure, as the 31 and the 63 are getting a good run into turn 1 and 2. 63 getting a little bit tight there, right up to the door of his teammate in the 57.
And Jonathan Delaney, just a little bit more info about him. His win this season to lock him into the playoffs was at a track that was 0.66 miles larger than this track. It came at Talladega just a couple of races ago, and he won the pole at Homestead, so he's usually been there, around there. He's been consistent. He's been there at the 1.5 milers. He's been one of those drivers to watch, and like you mentioned, a free agent. How special would it be for him to especially take a race win, as we've got 5 laps to go in this stage, and a battle for the race lead continues to rage on. Wineland takes back the race lead with Cameron Stone and this 3-car trifecta trying to take the race lead off turn 2.
Whoa. 57 got loose. He is down on the apron. He's going to rejoin in an estimate 4th or 5th place there, as the 31 is now making a move for the lead.
57 got loose, trying to get a little bit more than he can get off of the corner there, and he washed up the track a little bit. I think might have been contact with Delaney trying to save the race car there, and not enough, so he's going to fall back to, I believe, just about 7th, 8th, and 9th. He's falling back through the order a ton. As
looking at
now,
the replay here, looks like, yeah, I think the 57 just, I mean, that's not the first time we've seen the 57 get loose tonight. It's been 3 or 4 times. It's been close in contact between Delaney and the 31 of Eric Wineland. Ever so slightly there was contact, but it was enough. And now the 12 car has joined the fray.
And now Bryson Hickson's in the party as well, and so is Kevin Steele. So these drivers are trying to spoil the party to get some playoff points to their resume, especially working down the playoffs. 3 laps to go in this stage. We still got a couple laps to decide a stage winner, and these drivers are giving it their all on board, with Kevin Steele almost looking 3 wide with these 2 drivers ahead of him, and using the high lane, trying to get those fresh tires and get as much grip as, I think, almost contact with the 37 and the driver below him, but no harm, no foul. They'll stay together. Wineland still in the lead off turn 2. They're going to go single file, and in cases double file off into turn 3.
The 6 car pushing the 31 down the backstretch. They had to be locked at the bumper there, especially with the momentum they had, as the 63 is now trying to join them, but he just can't quite get clear the 12 car, and I think that's what's holding him back. But behind them, it is Kevin, consistency incarnate, Steele, trying to secure his top 5 position in the stage.
Getting to the end of the stage, here's on board with Wineland, who's got a bumper full of John Delaney, who's been all over in the past couple of laps. I think he might be just trying to set his move for the final lap of this stage, and almost trying to make the move, blocking all the way down to the racetrack. Gonna try to make a move on the high side. That could allow the 12 and the 63 to possibly scooch in to this top 3 and make a case for this stage win. And we're reaching the final lap. Here they come off turn 4, still all bunched together.
This is absolutely insane action. I expect no less from Michigan, as the 6 car almost got tripped up with the 9 car like you did. The 6 car is up high now, trying to make that top line work, but the 63 just getting right up against his door and forcing his hand. Who's going to try to make the move here?
Here we go. This is the final chance you have to try and get a playoff point. Of course, Bryson Hicksaball has 59, so he's going to try to get the magic number of 60 all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, in contact with Jonathan Delaney, and not enough to send him around, but it's enough to send him up the racetrack. Side by side for the race lead off the stage. Win off turn 4, side by side. It'll be right to the line, and it'll be, I think, Hicksaball.
Yeah, I think the 31 got it. I think that was Wineland. Holy
Wineland's
crap,
got
man.
it. Wow, what a finish.
Show. What
and that wasn't
show.
even the end of the race. That was the end of the stage. We'll see that one more time. A great move by Hicksaball, though. Props to him for making that and trying to make that work. It went all the way down in the stripe. I got very confused because it was so close on who ended up getting that stage win. But congratulations to the 31 for getting that playoff point and winning stage 1 after taking control of a good portion of this race. Here is the battle to the line in stage 1. And right to the blue and white line. You see the blue area right to the bottom, and there it is. So close.
Does it get any closer than that, Ken?
No, I don't think it can.
Yeah, I don't think it does. That was absolutely insane. What a drive by both of these. Absolute, just the peak of just competitiveness. And it looks like we're going to be seeing who's going to bring it down pit road. Obviously, some of these drivers have pitted fairly recently with the caution that we had at the end of the first stage there. If you were a driver who had recently pitted, what would you do, Ken?
I mean, I'd be kind of on the fence here because, again, you mentioned you didn't pit so long ago, so the tires aren't as old as maybe you think from a longer run, and you still have the grip on the tires, and you might want to make a risk, especially if you're farther back down the field. But if you're a driver like Wineland, if you're Hicksaball, if you're the drivers in the lead, I think it might be a safe case just to go down pit road, get those fresh tires, be on a clean slate at least for the start of the stage, and set yourself up for the rest of the stint up until stage 2 and the stage 2 ending to try and help yourself on that case. So we'll see if anyone goes down pit road, and it looks to be the whole field behind the 31 of Wineland. So everyone goes down pit road. I think I made the right decision there.
Yeah, we got, let's go ahead and bring in Josh Coppenroll. We're going to head down there to the infield care center and have a word with him.
All right, we're going to bring Josh Coppenroll in here and see exactly what went down. Welcome, Josh, to the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy with us, first of all?
Yes, I do.
All right, Josh. Well, we saw you slip down the order, and we saw you obviously in the infield care center. Is there anything you kind of want to explain or what really happened there through that stint that really kind of set your race into stone?
Well, I didn't get a lot of practice time this week. Just been a lot of crazy things going on, personal life-wise. So, kind of been getting back into the rhythm. So, really just kind of hopped in here blindly. Not quite blindly. I had a little bit of practice time, but not much. And the car was just really loose. I ended up getting onto the seam going into turn 2, and just slid and went straight into the wall. And it ended the day.
So I know you're currently one of those drivers who's locked in. I'm sorry, Andre, I'll let you get a question in.
I was going to say, it seems like we've seen that a lot from a lot of drivers. The car just wants to get tight and gets up into the wall there once it starts sliding. So, unfortunate break. You had a heck of a drive going on out there, man, and you can gather it up and get it next week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try to get it next week.
All right, and Josh, I know that we're kind of giving you the time, and I know these next couple of races are tough. Watkins Glen, Dover, Daytona. You're locked into the playoffs, currently 12th. Is there any sort of game plan you have to attack those 3 different races? It's a road course, short track, and super speedway. Is there any kind of game plan you have to kind of get a redemption at least from this race?
Survive, and survive. I'm bad at road courses. Dover doesn't suit me, and we all know Daytona's a wild card. I've got some really good alliances, and I think Daytona's going to be the best chance for me to really have a win. We worked so well earlier in the year with a bunch of guys, so I'm not expecting the next couple weeks to go really good for me, but Daytona should be a lot better.
All right, Josh. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Unfortunate to see you out this one early, but we hope to see you kind of get a redemption there into the Watkins Glen, Dover, and Daytona. So good luck through those next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
We're trying to get to the stage winner here, who won by just a couple of inches. We'll get to Eric Wineland, who was your stage winner. Bring him into the booth. And Eric, welcome to the 3x2B booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir. We're going into 3.
All right. Well, very quickly, tell us. Well, yeah, we'll try to get a word with you next caution. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to bring you up here and interrupt
understand.
Here.
I totally understand, boys.
All right. Good luck on the green flag there.
Thank you.
All right, we'll try to get Eric Wineland as soon as we can through the next caution. We've had our fair share, so I think we'll have enough time to bring him in. Nonetheless, pace car will come off of turn number 4. It'll be Dulaney and Wineland that'll lead the field to the green flag with Hicksonball, Caldwell behind him. On the gas pedal goes the 6th car. He'll lead them all to green. A Chevrolet and a Mustang back leading the field here in Michigan.
And just like every other restart we've seen tonight, that leader on the bottom line just gets quite the jump. Never seems to be able to hold it, though. The draft is just too powerful, as the 12 is trying to make it 3 wide on the outside.
And you see Caldwell already trying to use the grip to his advantage and has to back out of that one. Not enough to send it 3 wide, but Hicksonball to the bottom of the 31. He'll make a charge for second, and it looks like he'll barely clear him off turn 2. I don't think it's enough. Still side by side with Caldwell behind them. A bunch of drivers stacked up. I think they're almost 3 wide there. There's Cameron Stone, and now a battle for the race lead with Hicksonball trying to take over the race lead from Dulaney.
A lot of grip on that bottom line. If he can just get his let-off zones and line right there, he's going to get door-to-door with the leader, possibly get clear of him by the end of the straightaway. We will see. Not quite as much draft help down there on the bottom, as the 31 and the 6 are absolutely hooked up, and that's going to be to their benefit, Ken.
And you see them pushing each other, so he'll push Dulaney back to the front, and he'll file back and try to work himself around, as you see Hicksonball still trying to make something happen to the bottom. And the 37 of Taylor is here up as well. But we mentioned him just a little while ago when he stayed out with the 77 and dropped back a couple of spots and stayed within this top 10. So good run for him right now. He's keeping himself stable, and he's trying to make a move to the 12 into the top 5. So I think he's trying to look for more, staying a little bit hungry here.
I think hungry is the word for it, man. He wants to get it done. But, man, I cannot believe the runs that this draft is producing, the way that they're pushing each other down these straightaways. Some of the viewers at home might not understand how hard it is to keep the car straight when you got somebody breathing down your neck like that and pushing you. Just incredible driving by everybody so far tonight. And now the 12 car is moving right up to the 63. He's going to make his push for the lead if he can make it happen. Cam Caldwell in that 12. And behind him, it's the 7 car finally getting back up there after a little bit of intermission, running a little bit further back there for a while, but he is coming back strong, Ken.
Yeah, Wayne Grass back into this top 5. Great to see him after his struggle early, and he got loose down the bottom and had to check up early before the yellow came out with the 36 and the 91. So he's picked himself back a little bit. Nice to see him work himself back up and move back into this top 10, as now Wineland is going to try to use his help and his draft to get back up to this top 3. We got another driver in the garage. That is the 04 who was involved in the first caution of the evening. So fortunate to see him and trying to get the damage fixed on his race car and his Ford Mustang. But nonetheless, we've still got a battle for second heating up. Cam Caldwell fell back a little bit, tried to make it 3 wide. Now is working to second and possibly on your race leader, Bryson Hicksonball, who just took it off turn 4.
Door to door through the corner, and the top line's got a little bit of that draft help, so we're going to see if they can try and fend off the 12 car, but I'm not sure that 12 car is going to be denied. He has been pushing all night long, and now is his chance to finally lead some laps, get those points. And now side by side with the 6 cars, Wineland has slowly caught back up after losing a little bit of ground there a few laps ago. But right now, it is going to be Bryson Hicksonball in that 63 that's going to lead.
And again, draft is so huge at this racetrack. And you said it, when you have somebody breathing down your neck and right to your back bumper, you kind of feel it. You know, you have the nerves from that race car all the way behind you, and you feel as if, you know, a sense of anticipation that maybe they're going to do something and they're going to give you a push, and maybe if you're not able to handle the push and it can unsettle your race car, get you loose. It's so much like a super speedway in the early portions when you have first tires and you're full throttle all the way around, and the draft is so prominent that you feel like you're at like a Talladega or like a Daytona, where you have to kind of fend off the drivers who are in the draft. And when you have drivers in groups with draft, you have to watch out for them, because they can get large runs on the drivers who are singled out by themselves, maybe up in the front or maybe farther back in the group, as you're on board with the 7 of Rain Grass, who now looks to the bottom of the 31 of Wineland and try to get a position back into this top 5. Currently 5th right now, looking for more.
Yeah, and so far, man, you know, for being side by side, as long as they have, the 6 and the 12 are not dropping back from the leader at all, and neither is Wineland for that matter. And contact!
Oh, contact, we got to crash around. I think that might have involved Cam Caldwell. Looked like Dulaney was in there as well. Large crash with Cam Caldwell. Still more drivers piling in farther back into turn, I think turn 4. And huge crash going into turn 3. I think, and here's the contact with Cam Caldwell, and Dulaney goes hard into the outside wall. The 37 is involved as well. And then right back down to the racetrack, I think Dulaney and the 37 might have involved another couple of cars there. We'll try to take a look at Cam Caldwell. I'm not sure whether he thought it was clear, but here's his view.
Just a hard hit. I do believe the 217 was also involved in that. I think he was one of the guys that got into the 12 while he was spinning out of control, so unfortunate for him. Man, I did not expect to see that. I think that's going to be the 12 car's day done. He is missing his rear deck lid as well as his front splitter, so what a horrible break for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Caldwell there, and you see the contact between Dulaney and the 37. Cameron Stone is involved. The 53 is involved as well. There's a couple cars there. The 16, another insult to injury for him. He was involved in one of the yellows, and he's involved in this one as well. So a big one here in Michigan, and here is the onboard from the 217. We'll try to get a view in right through the middle. I'm not sure how he did not hit any cars there.
Yeah, see, I thought he was involved in that. I seen him drive through it, but apparently the net code was on his side, and he actually escaped that scot-free. So what a lucky break for him.
Yeah, maybe the force had to help him through there. That was tough getting in the midst of that car. And another look here with Dulaney and ending so many dominant drivers' nights. You see Cameron Stone, who led a good portion of this race, now with damage. He's going to have to dig himself out of the hole. You see Dulaney now, heavy damage to the engine of that race car. He's going to have to try and get that fixed, and that might end his night as well. And also the 37, who we mentioned, who stayed out and was picking himself up just as well ever since he fell back a couple of spots. Now he's going to have a lot of work to do as the rest of the field goes down pit road, and they exit pit road in regular fashion. I'm not sure who might have won that off of pit road, and I think Wineland might have had it. And no, Bryson Hicksonball has it off pit road. So first time we see him up front here leading off of pit road, he'll lead them back to green.
Alrighty. Should we try and get our previous stage winner up in here, Ken?
Yes, sir. We should get Eric Wineland here, get his opinions here for his stage win. Had a little bit of a mix-up there as soon as we were getting off of the caution. But Eric Wineland, welcome back to the 3x2V booth. Now we can finally get a formal interview with you. You got a copy with us?
Yes, sir. I got you, guess.
All right, Eric. Well, you had a crazy run there to that stage and that final lap of stage number 1 with Dulaney there, and you saw Hicksonball there with you. Was there anything you were kind of worried about through that first stage and ending that side by side and working all around each other?
The main thing I was worried about was the fast guys up front. Dulaney had a really good car there until that last incident just now, and Hicksonball is part of a really good team. So he's fast in and out, week in and week out. So he caught me off guard getting up there right there at the end, but able to pinch just enough to hang on, and hats off to him for a clean finish there.
And you have that to your resume, and you have another playoff point. You had 9 going into this race, currently 3rd in the point standings. How is that momentum, and how is that stage win and the playoff point? How is that further going to help you going into the playoffs in a couple weeks' time?
Well, Kenneth, the playoff points are very much a important factor for my strategy tonight. I don't think anyone's going to catch Bryson. Bryson had a tear at the start of the season to get himself a pretty comfortable cushion, but I don't think second's out of the question to be able to get those extra regular bonus playoff points at the end of the regular season. So that's the goal, is to try to win the stages tonight and win the race, and continue building playoff points since we're already locked into the playoffs.
10-4, Eric. We're going to let you go on this restart with Bryson, and we wish you luck through stage 2 and the rest of it. We hope to see you have another great battle like that at the end of the checkered flag in stage 2.
Good luck, Eric.
10-4. Thank you, Andre, Kenneth, Carlos. Appreciate it, guys.
So Eric Wineland out of the booth. He is your stage 1 winner. Going to try to fend for a stage 2 win along with Bryson Hixenbaugh. These two will lead the field back to the green flag. So pace car will slip down pit road. We are ready to go back green after a caution a couple of laps back. Lap 74 will be in the hands of Bryson Hixenbaugh. We're back green, and another great start from the leader like we've seen so many times.
I tell you, I think the 7 car is going to have a way easier time. Now, you hate to say it, but some of the competition has been eliminated, and now he is in a good position there in P3. That's a podium position. A little bit of checkup in the field there. I think somebody spun their tires, not exactly sure who, but we're on board with Wineland right now as he challenges Bryson Hixenbaugh.
And here he's going to get the huge draft down the back straightaway, and now he's going to have to fend off the 7 of Wayne Grass, who's now going to look to the bottom. And when you have the draft, even into 3rd, battling for 2nd, you get that draft to battle for the guys up front, and the 7 is doing exactly that. Might have some help from the 217 of Jack Durham, and he's definitely going to have that to the bottom, of course, going into turn number 1. So new leader, number 7, he edged him out at the line. He's going to try to continue that tonight.
The first time he's led laps all night long, I'm sure he's got to be ecstatic. He's been running up front just that close, and now he's finally got it. But we are 2 wide, 2 rows deep behind him, and I don't think he's exactly got it easy right now.
You see the graphic up at the top of your screen and the drivers who have led the most laps. You see Eric Wineland with the most. He's fallen back. Cameron Stone, who was involved in that incident, 20 laps led. Jonathan Delaney, who was also involved in that incident, 11 laps led. And then you get to the driver who's still in this race in this main group, Hixenbaugh, with 10. And now it looks like the 7 is going to try to get back on this board with and lead a couple of laps of his own. But he's got a little bit of challenging to do with all the Camaros behind him. I think the Mustangs might have left off a little bit. Now the Camaros are starting to take over.
It is a Camaro powerhouse. You are right. That 217, that's crazy to me that he goes from being this close to disaster, just narrowly avoiding that wreck, and now he's up in P2 looking to try to take the lead.
And when you get through a huge wreck like that, you must feel really good at getting through a wreck and narrowly avoiding it. You got to feel good that you're not, and a little bit relieved that you're not in it. And then it kind of gives you a little bit of a boost, like, okay, I can get through this. And maybe a little bit more of a confidence booster. And now the 217 is using that confidence to get back up to this race lead and challenge for the first time here tonight. Got that draft off of turn number 2. A brilliant corner for that 217 as you see the battle for 3rd heating up between Probst and Hixenbaugh. They're going to try to battle behind them, but Durham slowly looking for this lead off turn 4. He might have side-by-side action if he gets there.
He is absolutely sending it through the corner, giving it everything the car will take, I think. And if he can just utilize that draft, he's got something for him. All of these cars are so equally paced. I mean, these drivers are all so talented. You just get to the point where they're just so close. And now Bryson Hixenbaugh closing the gap, trying to get back up there into the lead after dropping back. And, man, right up against the bumper. The 217 is pushing the 7 out of the corner. Now he's going to look to the bottom, Ken.
I think we saw a car on the wall back there. It was a Ford Mustang in the Mystery Machine colors, but nonetheless, no harm, no foul as Cameron Stone is down pit road trying to get extra damage fixed from his incident. But here comes a battle for the race lead. Jack Durham to the race lead for the first time here tonight. He's going to have a fight to pick with Hixenbaugh here, and they're going to try to work together to the bottom. Hixenbaugh might be looking for a little bit more and try to look for a line to enter in 1 and 2, and he's going to use the bottom now to get to the quarter panel. So close. Might see a battle here for the race lead very, very soon. Still guys working together.
And the bottom line is just so powerful. And speaking of the bottom line, look who's down there working his way back up there. It is Eric Wineland. He's going to try to get back up there, but to do it, he's going to have to get around Probst. Zach Probst on the 162. Not enough can be said about what an incredible job he's doing right now. Haven't seen too much from this race, but he got up there and he is holding his own against the best.
And when you're staying in this main group, especially with guys like Kevin Steele and the 77 of Dalton Mobley and Wineland, and now even behind Moblin with Maya in the 20, when you're staying there and when wreckage happens in front of you, you gain those positions. They're kind of freebie positions where you're able to gain, and you know that helps you out in terms of track position. And when you have that track position, it helps you out immensely, because then you're in this first group. You have the draft like we saw with Jack Durham, as there's a 57 trying to limp around the racetrack, getting out of harm's way and everyone in front. So he's going to try and work his way back around the racetrack and possibly go back down pit road. But there's 3 wide for second. Wineland all the way down to the bottom. He is making things work. Very aggressive in this race.
3 wide still going into the corner. Something's got to give. Somebody's going to have to lift. But you never want to be the guy that does contact. The 7 and the 217. That is Grassy and Durham making contact. But man, they both gathered up.
Yeah, they escaped that one. I was expecting maybe one to go around, but glad to see that they're both okay. It looks like the 7 will fly back a couple spots and fall into the clutches of Probst. Zach Probst and the 77 of Dalton Mobley. More contact. The 7 hard into the outside wall. And I'm not sure which other driver was involved in that. 162 involved in that, but oh boy, unfortunate ending to the 7's day, and that comes right here in turn 3, just loose in turn 3, and then contact, and then the 162 involved as well, and just goes flipping in 3 and 4. Boy, I think I've got a jinx issue here, because that was unbelievable. Try to get it on board and see exactly what he had to experience behind the wheel.
This is going to be a wild ride, folks. Just hard into the wall, side down. Getting nailed on the roof. We got a couple of drivers in the infield care center. Let's bring Zach Probst up here.
Yeah, we'll see what Zach Probst was seeing through that incident. I think I'll let you take over this interview, Andre, since I've taken care of the stage winner, and I'll let you get in this one.
Zach Probst, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
Unfortunate break for you, man. I was just talking about you, saying you were making a crazy good run to get up front and hold your own against the best in the league. And then just absolute chaos happens in front of you. What was your perspective on all of that?
I don't really know. I looked at the replay once. Looked like he got loose right in front of me, right at the apex. I had nowhere to go.
Just one of those situations. There's not really too many places you can put your car when you're committed to the line there. How beat up is your car? Is your day done?
Oh, I don't know how much repairs I have, but my entire front end is gone.
Joining the modified division, as we call it. That is just a tough break. Hate to see it, but you can gather it up, get it next week. You showed some great speed, and you did a great job up until the incident there. So,
yeah,
hate to see it. Congratulations on the good run, though, before that.
Thanks. Hopefully I do the same next week without the wreck.
Absolutely. We'll be looking for it, man.
The drivers off of pit road. You saw the battle there as we were getting that interview in, and Wineland, who fell back through that run and tried to make a run 3 wide for what looked to be like second, so he's gained back up into this race lead ahead of Bryson Hicksonbaugh, and the 77 following behind Kevin Steele along in that group. So they gained a couple spots there. The 217 of Durham falls back to at least 5th, but nonetheless he still stays there. Was able to not be involved in what happened with the 7 there. Unfortunate ending to his night, and not great to see, especially when you're doing so well early in the race, and then one small thing, one tiny mishap can really end your night and really set it back and dig a hole in your night pretty much.
Absolutely. We got the lights are still on the pace car. We got one more driver in the infield care center. If you want to take it away and interview Dave Fugue there, Ken.
All right, well, he is in the garage. We'll see if we get the 1 to green signal here, and we do. So I think we'll just try to get something quick in here before we go green. And Dave Fugue, welcome to the 3xTV booth. You got a copy with us?
I do. Got the run clear.
All right. Well, you had a rough run in that first segment there, and you got involved in the front straightaway. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on what happened there, and really your thoughts on what exactly went down behind the wheel, and having that experience ever since.
The car was really good. It was fast. Just trying to temper being patient with staying up front, because it's a big momentum track, and track position means everything. So I didn't want to lose too much, but it was starting to get a little loose off the corners of 2, and 4 wasn't too bad. But right there, just got a little loose. Tail slapped it off the wall, and then that was all she wrote. But I'm just glad no one else was caught up into it because I'd hate to ruin someone else's day on my mistake.
All right, Dave. Well, unfortunate end to your night. We hope to see you down at the Glen next week and putting on a great show. And we hope to see you, have a better night going into the next couple weeks. So we thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
No problem. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Dave is out of the booth, and just in time, we have the pace car into 3 and 4 with Hickson, Ball, and Wineland will lead the field to green. Looks like Wineland chooses the outside lane, maybe the smarter choice. We'll just have to see if that pays off. We've seen that inside line charge in multiple times as the lap started to progress, but another restart here, lap number 85. Wineland with a good jump. I think Hickson, Ball kind of stays with him, and Kevin Steele into this outside in the second row.
Up into a podium position goes the 44. That's pretty impressive. And look at the 77. A little bit of trouble earlier, and he has clawed his way back up towards the front, making the most of it tonight. I think if there was an award for the most resilient and enduring driver so far, it would have to go to that 77.
And also the 38 of Pierce, who was involved in that first incident with the driver we just interviewed, the 04. He went around on the front straightaway, so great to see him back in this top 5. I don't want to jinx him like I did the 7 there, unfortunately, kind of getting into incidents there. But good to see him back up here as we got a battle for what looks to be like second and possibly this race lead. Mobley still not giving up on the bottom.
Yeah, he is not giving that up at all. I mean, and it's impressive that he has kept the speed he has with how little draft help there was in that bottom lane when the top 3 got hooked up on the top. But Bryson Hickson-Bott now door-to-door with the 77, trying to get the draft to the 31, get up to his bumper, and potentially make a move. And behind them, there's the 217 once again, trying to get up there and get back to that podium position he held before.
So we're approaching 30 laps left in the stage. As soon as we reach lap number 90, we'll reach 30 laps until the stage 2 ending at lap 120. But Andre, if there's anything I want to ask right now, especially within this segment, with all these drivers up here, if you're one of these drivers, is there somewhat of a conservatory approach? Do you kind of want to run this out to the end? Are you expecting a yellow soon, or maybe are you expecting a long run like we saw in the first half of the race?
Well, if it was a little bit earlier in the race, I would be expecting a yellow, but with the cautions we've had, the field has been thinned out a little bit more. I think the likelihood of a caution has gone down considerably, so I do think you're going to see some of these guys up front probably start to conserve, run that higher line, keep those tires as cool as they can, and try to stretch this out as far as they can, because I don't think they're really going to be planning on too many yellows.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Attrition plays such a huge role in races, and when you have a lot of attrition, I wouldn't say that this race has a lot of attrition, like very much. It's not very, condensed, but we've had our fair share of drivers getting taken out and drivers being involved in incidents and having ends to their day. And when attrition plays a role and the field gets more thinly spread out, you have less drivers stacked together, unless you're these top 4, which all together are pretty much inches apart. But if you have all that attrition, if you have, drivers getting taken out, you don't have as many drivers on the track, it probably gives you a little bit more leeway, for drivers who are farther back in the field, drivers who are in single file. You see Kevin Steele, you see the 45 of Belardo, Pierce in the 38, Noel in the 36, drivers all the way back to Damaris Hickenbottom in the 09 in 10th. Those drivers are kind of now probably realizing that the cautions might not be coming out. Maybe attrition is playing a bigger role, and they're just trying to hit their marks for what could be a longer green flag run up until the stage 2 end.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Ken, I am really surprised. You mentioned Alardo. I am really surprised that he has made his way back up to P6 now, being challenged for that spot by the 38. He's had a lot of adversity tonight. He's gotten into a few scuffles there. You can see the damage on the right side of his car. But despite the damage that's got to be holding him back a little bit, he is making a run for it and just holding his own right now.
And unbelievably, Alardo...
3 wide for the lead.
Yeah, 3 wide for the lead, as I was just about to mention something about Alardo, but we're going to focus on this a little bit. I think Wineland just backed up there. Yeah, he did not want any part of that 3 wide action at all, so that's going to leave the 2 Camaros of Durham and the 77 of Mobley up to fight for this race seat. I think maybe the 31 is going to try a different approach, maybe not try to go 3 wide, maybe helping one of those drivers to the lead. But again, like you mentioned, Alardo in the 45, you saw him had that issue off of turn number 2 where he got a piece of the wall. He has a damage, and really, I'm surprised that he hasn't been, slower. He's contained himself with this top 10, and he's been able to stick with these guys, even though he has that damage. Remember, tracks like these where you're full throttle, where draft is so significant, damage can really affect you aerodynamically. So I'm very surprised to see that 45 up there. But nonetheless, I think it's pretty good for him.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's incredibly impressive. The aero means so much here at a track where you're almost wide open. So for him to be where he is right now, he's got to be using the draft to its absolute maximum extent. Like, he can just see the air, man, and he's locking onto these cars ahead of him to help them pull him around, and he's doing a great job of it.
There's Preston McRae, and the 53 looks like his engine is gone. He had the damage from that incident with Dulaney in the 37, so that's going to end his night pretty much. He's going to have that engine damage. Going to try and limp all the way back to pit road and get into his pit stall. Try to get things damaged as more cars are further down this order that have damage. You see Jonathan Dulaney now there. There's Cameron Stone with damage. You saw the 16 with damage. There's the 53 going back down pit road. Lots of drivers still trying to limp in and trying to get something out of this, even though they have the damage and even though they're significantly slower. But looks like up front, I think things have tamed just a little bit now because they're all single file from pretty much the 77 all the way down to Kevin Steele in fifth.
Absolutely. And while things are calmed down, we got a couple drivers in the infield care center if you want to take it away there, Ken. We got the driver of the 25, which was the mystery machine that got into the wall you mentioned earlier. He's in the infield care center, as well as Wayne Grass in the 7. So take your pick, buddy.
All right, I think I'm gonna go with the 7 who was involved in that huge incident there. I'm gonna try to get his opinion there. And Wayne, welcome to the 3 Ride TV booth. You got a copy with us?
Yes, sir. You copy me?
Yes, sir. We got you. And I want to ask you first. You had such a great run through that first segment, and we saw you battling for the race lead. We saw you pick up. We saw you fall back a little bit, then pick up, and then you were falling back before that caution that involved you and Zach Probst, I believe, in the 162. Is there? Tell us kind of what happened there and really how the car felt going into turn 3 that kind of set that apart.
Yeah, we were 3 wide, I think, the lap before that. And the car above me, I think it was a 217, came down and sideswiped me a little bit. I don't know if I had damage or what, but the car just didn't feel right. I don't know what was wrong. I must have got a little bit of a damage or something, but it was very unusual for me to get loose like that on the high side. I don't know why the car got loose. Definitely my fault. I apologize to everyone involved. Didn't mean to do it, but what can I say?
Well, I mean, I don't think there really was much to say, after that incident and unfortunate ending to your night. But I want to talk about the future and maybe some higher hopes ahead. There's Watkins Glen, Dover, Daytona onto the playoffs. Is there any one of those tracks that you're kind of looking forward to? Maybe a track that might suit your style a little more, maybe something you're excited for, or maybe something you want to have a shot at?
Well, actually, Michigan is probably my favorite track. Really regret that happened. Watkins Glen, I'm not really a big fan of road courses, but I show up and do the best I can. Daytona to me is a total crapshoot. Really, it's anybody's race. So, I'm liking the mile and a halves. I really am a big fan of the mile and a halves.
All right, Wayne. Well, we thank you for taking the time to talk with us on your unfortunate ending, and we hope to see you in the next couple of weeks and coming back up from this race.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Wayne Grass out of the infield care center, and I think one of the drivers has left the infield care center, so I don't think we'll have the interview with the driver that was in there. Yeah.
He waited around too long, and his golf cart driver came and got him.
There you go. I'm going to try to pack up for next week's race at the Glen. But as we've been looking at the battle up front during that interview, Bryson Hixenball took back the race lead, and he has pretty much got it ever since. Wineland follows behind, then goes to 77 to Mobley, and then going back to Kevin Steele in the 44. So lots of separation here as the 2 damaged drivers go back down pit road. But now we're seeing, I think, what we haven't seen all race as we approach the halfway portion of this race and reaching 20 laps to go in the stage is lots of separation. No more draft is playing too much of a factor. Now it's just down to the drivers and how they manage their race cars going down the road and how they're able to conserve their cars and what is a very, very long run that could reach all the way down to the stage end.
Absolutely. Now, to the viewers at home, as we watch Bryson Hixenbaum make his way around the track, you might notice him darting down into the lower lanes when he goes to the straightaways, especially the backstretch. The reason he's doing that is he's breaking the draft. When he darts down, the cars that are behind him can no longer sort of get sucked into that air bubble that his car is producing. So if you do that, you can kind of break their momentum and help yourself keep the lead. But man, this is probably the biggest gap I think we've seen the leader put on anybody so far tonight. This is kind of crazy to see, but man, the 77 and 31, don't count them out yet.
Yeah, they've been so strong in this race, especially Wineland and the 77 of Mobley, who reached up through here. And now that we're at this halfway portion, we've reached 100 of 200. Before we get to the end of stage 2, I think it's a good time to go through the rest of the field and see where everyone stands. We'll obviously start with your race leader, Bryson Hixenbaugh. 9 wins to his resume this season, looking for a 10th. And he's had a good share of laps led here in this race, and he continues to lead. So you see all those win stickers to the side of his race car. You see how dominant he's been this season. Trying to look for another stage point, a playoff point. That'll be 60 if he's able to get it. But so far, a great race. Andre, I'll leave you to Wineland.
Yeah, so Wineland, I think he was being a little bit too hard on himself when we interviewed him. He said, I don't think anybody has anything for B-Hicks, but man, Wineland has had such good speed all night long, leading a lot of laps, making some impressive moves that I don't think we've seen anybody else make so far. And he's fallen back a little bit right now, but I think you're going to see that change as the tires start to wear, because B-Hicks, Bryson Hixenbaugh, with him driving away, he might be burning up his equipment, and that's going to open the door for Eric Wineland.
And there is the 77 looking under Wineland. That is Dalton Mobley, who has been up here through this race. He fell back just a little bit. Remember, he stayed out when the rest of the field stayed in with the 37, and he fell back a couple of spots, but was able to keep himself into the top 10 until that yellow came out. So it has been a pretty great race for that 77. Not too much happening apart from the action up front, where he's had to deal going 3 wide and 2 wide and battling with everybody. And of course, your leader, Bryson Hixenbaugh, but a great run nonetheless for the 77. He's going to try to keep that up in the rest of this race, Andre.
Yes, sir. Now the 44, Kevin Steele, he's 4 seconds back from the leader. He's put on a good show all night long, just super consistent. And he is just wheeling that 44 around the track, trying to make the best of it. I think he's hoping for a caution. He's out of the drafting distance, so I don't think he really has a chance to quite catch up right now. But one yellow flag, and you're going to see him back up there fighting for the lead.
And then falling back to the inside of the top 5 is Jack Durham in the 217. We saw him get into contact with the 7 there, and we saw him battling with the rest of the drivers up front. Just like Kevin Steele, he has fallen off of the draft, and he's currently 4 seconds back to the race leader, and just about 1 second behind the driver in front of him, Kevin Steele. But nonetheless, right now in this long run, I think if you're this 217, just good to hit your marks, continue to be where you're at, try not to use up too much, and currently staying in 5th, that might be good for him in this stage.
Absolutely. Back in 6th place behind Durham, you've got Brandon Pierce. You were talking about him earlier, commending how much he's had to get through. He's been involved in a few incidents, and still he has just clawed his way back up to P6, and he's done it with a pretty wounded horse. I mean, you look at the front of the car, you can kind of see the engine underneath that hood, and you can also see the rear end of his car. That bumper has just been pushed in right up against the fuel cell. But despite that, he is still giving it everything that car has.
And then another car with damage behind him in the 45, sporting a Clemson Toyota Camry. That is Jonathan Elardo. He got into an incident earlier in this race. You see the damage when that happened to the back bumper. You see the spoiler just a little bit affected, and the damage to the right front. But nonetheless, that 45, like I said early in this race, has been able to keep up with the rest of the field. And it's great to see that even with the damage, even with the setbacks that he's had, he's been able to stay up. He's been able to keep his head up. And he's been able to wheel his race car to where it is right now in 7th, in what looks to be a great top 10 run for him right now, and possibly looking for more. Currently by himself on the racetrack, still a couple of seconds back, 1 second, just about almost a second back behind the 38 of Pierce. So trying to hit his marks right now, and very good right now in 7th.
Absolutely. And then behind them, we got somebody who I don't think we mentioned yet, Dakota Knoll. He is in P8. He's in the top 10. Definitely been a little bit of a benefactor of all the incidents and DNFs we've had so far. And sometimes that's what it takes, man. Sometimes survival can get you into those good finishes and gather up points. And sometimes that's enough to get a championship.
That is certainly true, and staying consistent is one of those. And of course, if you want to stay consistent, you got to look back to Damaris Hickenbottom, who's currently 11th in the point standings, currently locked into the playoffs, so he has not to worry about anything concerning the playoffs, because he's already got a spot locked in for him. But regardless, a 9th place running for him right now would be great in terms of points. You see him right to the back of the 36, so he might try to gain another point for that 09 Ford Mustang. We haven't seen him much in the front of the field. He's been kind of just keeping himself stable and staying where he is, trying to get the best that he can for the most part, especially with the wrecks ahead of him that have been able to get through. And here comes the top 10, Andre.
Yeah, so Danny Myatt, he is going to round out your top 10. He was up in P3 for a while there before that big crash there in the corner where the 7 car found himself upside down and on his lid. We know he has a fast car. He showed that earlier. If he can just get a lucky break, maybe a yellow here or there, some time in the pits to get that car fixed up, I think he's going to be back in it. But right now, it's the 63 that's hitting pit road.
You see the 63 going down pit road. That was your race leader, Bryson Hicksonball. So he's going to start this pit road cycle, and we'll see if anyone else follows along with Wineland and Mobley. But that was your mid-race recap here on 3 Wide TV. That was your top 10. And the 20 of Danny Myatt, he was 10th on the leaderboard. Now picked up to 9th, of course, with Bryson Hicksonball going down. But he shared a 10th place there, just like he is in the point standings, without a win, but 176 points. So that above the cutoff. So great for him and starting right now into 9th. But we'll just have to see whether these top 2, or at least the drivers in front, or maybe drivers behind, will start to form this pit cycle. As you see, Bryson Hicksonball is getting out of the racetrack. And the 16 has a blown engine. That is Ryan Samuelson. So another driver with heavy damage. He has been involved in a couple incidents tonight. I think this might be the end to his night, unfortunately. But we're looking at this, and these top 2 still have yet to pit. So I think they're just trying to stretch this out. And Andre, if you're one of the drivers within this top 10, if you're a little bit farther back, you don't have the draft, is there something you might want to do, maybe short pit, or just try to maybe jump ahead of these leaders in some way possible?
I definitely would have short pitted. We saw Bryson Hicksonball come down pit road. He was one of the first to do it out of the lead. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see some of these guys a little bit further back pit either one lap before him or on the same lap, because that could help them gain a crazy amount of time. I know just pitting one lap early doesn't sound like much, but those fresher tires can be a second to a second and a half faster per lap. So, that's the more time you spend on fresh tires, the more time you're going to gain. That's what I would have done were I in their shoes. But hey, I'm up in the booth and they're down there.
And we still have yet to see anybody pit except for Hicksonball. So Hicksonball falls back to 12th. He has yet to be obviously put a lap down due to the fresher tires. He was able to get out just in front of the leaders and stay where he is. And with those fresher tires, it's obviously going to help him gain time and circle back around and maybe gain some spots along the way. But still, the battle for the race lead consists with the Wineland and Dalton Mobley. They have been pretty much together ever since the start of the stint. And throughout the green flag run, they have just stayed stuck together like glue. They have not fallen off of each other. That 77 has not given up. He tried to make a move when we were covering them just a little bit earlier, but nonetheless, still keeping himself up with this 31. So I don't think we see any other drivers down pit road. Nobody else has pretty much changed, anyone changing spots. And pretty much nobody has gone down pit road other than Hicksonball. So I'm not sure whether they're just trying to maximize the strategy out to their advantage and try to stay out as much as they can. But I think Wineland might be choosing something. I'm not sure what's happening out here, but we'll just have to see.
Well, if I'm Eric Wineland or Mobley in the 77, at this point you're committed. Bryson Hicksonball, it's been 3 or 4 laps since he's pitted, and the amount of time he's gained on them is substantial. If they were to pit right now, the 63 would cycle out so far ahead of them that it would be detrimental. So what they're doing, I think, is they're hoping for a yellow. If they can get a yellow and pit under caution, that's going to keep them in the game. But, man, the 77 now looking to try to take a lead from the bottom as they go door to door coming out of turn 2.
And even though they're on these old tires, he has not been afraid to be aggressive with this 31. They have been kind of getting acquainted over the course of this run. When that 31 just sees the Chevy Camaro right behind him, he's got to think, okay, here he comes again. And now to the inside goes the 77. So I don't think any of these drivers have pit road on their mind whatsoever. Just staying out on the racetrack on those tires and staying out for just as long as they can. And even though the 77 to lead laps, that makes you feel good, because when you lead laps, it gives you those extra points. You stay up front, you're able to stay in first, and leading laps is always beneficial rather than anything, harmful to you or, your team. So I think if you're Dalton Mobley, he's just trying to get as much as he can, especially right now. He's still side by side, so he still hasn't been able to clear him. But if you're the 77, I think it's kind of a why not situation for him. Just try to go for it.
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I'll tell you what,
Oh, and contact, that's Kevin Steele and Jack Durham, but what a save by the 44 of Steele. Those drivers stayed out as well. They have yet to hit pit road. We'll take a replay. That was almost calamity there. That could have brought out a caution. That could have changed everything. Luckily, it did not. Here was the move from Jack Durham. Tried to get to the bottom and just went up the racetrack and got into the 44. And what a save. I was trying to get a cockpit cam of that 44. That was unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah, that was a save. That was an absolute save. I was going to mention before that happened that I think Mobley has a lot of faith in his car to be sending it so low in those corners, because on corner exit, it's going to want to shoot back up, and he's fighting that car. And then exactly that happened right there. The 217 sent it in on the bottom, and the car just shot back up on exit, and that's how he got into the 48. But the 48 now kept him back up to the 217. And now we're on board with Kevin Steele during that incident.
And here's the contact in the middle of the corner, and look at that wheel. Had to whip it all the way right and save that race car. But if that yellow were to come out, guess who would have been in the lead? It would have been Dalton Mobley. He would have taken over the race lead. So I think that might have paid off if that were to be the case, but it was not. But still, the 77 takes over the race lead. I think Wineland might have decided to back up just a little bit as Kevin Steele gets back around the 217, so no worries there. But still, these two have yet to pit. Hicksonball is still in 11th.
All I can say is I hope Kevin Steele's force feedback wasn't set too high, because that wheel came right around on him there. But man, what a save he made. And now Wineland back on the bottom trying to take that lead back. We are coming up on the stage. Everything, it's like Wineland said earlier.
And that's a weird point. I was thinking about that as soon as we started going over this. Now that we're approaching 3 laps until the stage 2 ending, this might be something good for Hicksonball, because if he pits early, this might be part of his strategy to pit now and then wait till the stage ends so that these drivers are on the older tires and he can pick up a little bit of time and then stay out on the next run. Maybe that's not the approach he's looking for, but I think if he's planning to pit through there, I think that might be what he's trying to aim for, just staying out, leading more laps, getting more points, and inevitably being there at the end of being there in the stage, heading up to stage 3 and the rest of this race, as these drivers will still stay out on these final 2 laps. So we'll just see which driver takes it on top. We saw one in a cutthroat battle with Hicksonball at the end of stage 1. There could be another one here at stage 2.
It's going to be close. If these guys can make it to the end without pitting, I mean, there is going to be a battle. The pace between these cars is so close, and the draft is just providing Wineland with these huge runs that the 77 has to defend against. We're coming to lap 119 at the line, so this is coming to a close, and I think you're going to see some fireworks real soon, Ken.
I think Wineland is trying to take a different line, and when you have different lines, it gives you a little bit more clean air as you're on board with Wineland and see exactly the approach he takes in each and every corner. And you see him get the draft off the 77. You see him peak a little bit low. And, when you're right behind a driver, dirty air means so much. It could really harm your run if you're trying to make a move, to the inside or to the outside. As now they're side by side as we're approaching the white flag in this stage. So another nail-biting battle. If you're there watching in the YouTube chat, you must be biting your nails watching these two drivers battle it out. So white flag in the stage for Dalton Mobley and Wineland in what could be another neck-and-neck battle to the finish line. We'll just have to see. Turn 1 and 2 still side by side.
The 77 going to get the side draft on the 31, try to slow him down just a little bit, getting a good run out of the corner. That's one of the benefits of running the high side, is the speed that you can carry out. And it looks like he's not quite going to get clear of the 31, so coming through 3 and 4, it is anybody's game. The 31 sending it deep on the loud pedal into the corner, with the 77 conceding the position, but now he is fighting back. Contact! They're sliding!
And they keep it together. And Wineland is able to get out of that. Almost close, but Wineland takes the stage 2 win and sweeps both stages tonight at Michigan. What a finish there we saw. It wasn't as clean as we saw the first stage, going side by side with space. A little bit more contact. You saw the 31 just send it into 3 and 4, and the 77 of Mobley tried to get the crossover and contact between the two. Luckily able to keep it straight and no spinning or any further contact to cause any damage. And Wineland takes the stage once again, another playoff point to his name, and he will carry that on through the rest of this race. So great momentum for Wineland. That must feel good to sweep, not only just win one stage, but win both.
Absolutely. I mean, to get those points and just close the gap, even if it's just a little bit, to Bryson Hicksonball in the points, that's got to be a huge relief, just a load off his shoulders. And he's got to be ecstatic. But, man, I also can't say enough about Dalton Mobley. He has been so impressive all race long. and he is absolutely making his name known, because these are some of the best drivers, not only in the league, but I mean, these are names that are known across iRacing. Bryson Hicksonbaugh, Wineland. These are guys that you hear of outside of this league, and he's out there absolutely putting himself alongside them. So impressive drive by Mobley.
Yeah, and making a statement, that is, very, very great for him, because, that allows for more opportunities in terms of sponsorships, maybe teams, and just getting your name out there and people, getting respect for you as a driver. And you see his performances here in Michigan, and it has shown that he is one of the drivers that's able to contend with larger names like Wineland, like Hicksonbaugh, and like of the likes of the which that are around him. So he has been able to make a statement for himself and really, continue to get good finishes and get good crucial stage points out of this, as everyone goes down pit road behind Eric Wineland. So they will follow his strategy, and everyone behind, including Hicksonbaugh, down. I'm surprised to see him go in instead of stay out.
Well, I think his strategy just wasn't working out for him. He pitted a good 10 laps prior to the end of the stage, and that's quite a bit on these tires. That does start to eat into your lap times, having 10-lap old tires. So looks like the 77 is going to overshoot his stall a little bit in the pits there. He had to slam it in reverse. We're going to see how much time that cost him. Wineland earlier did the exact same thing, but actually managed to keep the lead coming out of the pits. So hopefully it didn't cost him too much, but we're going to see the order as they make their way off of pit road.
Out of pit road, and it helps Wineland significantly, and 1 spot lost, 2 spots lost actually, for Mobley there, who was in first, and then second he loses 1 spot to third, falls back behind Kevin Steele off of pit road. So Kevin Steele, first time into the top 2, great to see him pick up after that, and now Eric Wineland will still stay in this lead, so he'll try to continue his domination ever since the drop of the green flag and the stage wins. So through that, I think we might want to get another interview with Eric. I think, Andre, you might have a chance at this and ask him some questions, how he feels to win 2 stage wins in a row. We'll try to get to that to you. He's in the waiting room. We'll bring him in.
Alrighty. Eric Wineland, you got a copy?
Yes, sir. I got you guys.
I tell you what, I was saying you were being a little bit down on yourself in the first interview, saying I don't think anybody has anything for Bryson, but you've had such great speed all night long. You swept the stages. Man, there were sparks flying coming through 3 and 4. A little bit of contact coming to the stage, green and white checkered. What did you see in all that?
2 guys going hard. I mean, Dalton, this is the first that I've really had the chance to race him like in this fashion. We just haven't found each other on the track in the previous races this season. Got him. So that was just, I want to get that stage point like I was talking about there, the first stage break. Dalton was respectful enough to cut me a break there instead of fully turning us and getting us into trouble. So much respect to him. I definitely owe him one there, but yeah, just 2 guys going hard for a stage finish.
Absolutely. The lights are off on the pace car, so we're going to let you go. But real quick, how much of a weight off your shoulder is it to know that you have closed the gap just a little bit in the points to Bryson Hicksonbaugh with that extra point?
Well, Andre, it feels a little better. I mean, it's only 1 point, and like I said, Bryson's got the regular season championship locked up, so he's pretty much set on bonus points or playoff points there. So it's all about getting to that second place spot today.
Absolutely. Well, good luck out there, man. You've had a great run so far. We're looking forward to seeing what you do.
Appreciate it, Andre, Kenneth, and Carlos. Thank you, guys.
Going to bring Eric Wineland back into his team chat, and another stage win. Must feel good. Even though it's 1 point, it means a lot at the end of the day. Even 1 point could set you far ahead of anything else, and it really helps you down the road going into, especially into the playoffs with that momentum. So another restart here on lap number 124. Stage 2 has been completed. Now it just leaves from here all the way to the end of the race. Eric Wineland, Kevin Steele will lead the field to green, along with Pierce and the 77 behind them. Green flag is back out. You see how much the field has shrunk. But back green, here we are, an early start for Wineland. Kevin Steele follows behind.
Yep, Kevin Steele, I think, is going to be a force to be reckoned with now that he's up in the top 2. Going to be hard to pass. Wineland putting a little bit of distance between him and second place there. And here comes Bryson Hicksonbaugh after his strategy kind of came back to bite him there. He's now back in P4, trying to fight with that 45, get around him for that extra position, and see if he can get back up there.
He's going to have the draft from the 77 of Mobley to help him out here. Is on board with the 44 of Steele as he is trying to stay up with the 31 of Wyland. And a battle for the race lead continues with the 77 and the 31. The saga continues. Now the 77 of Mobley to the race lead, gonna lead some more laps, and we'll see if Wineland has anything to say for it. And now Hicksonball is gonna try to get up into this mix along with help from Jack Durham. They're gonna try to spice up in something in turn 2.
Absolutely, and man, here comes the 217 once again, pushing the 63, trying to make that bottom line work. I think right now the top line's kind of where you want to be. I mean, you got so many cars up there that the draft is just absolutely huge, but I think Bryson Hicksonball is still going to try to make that bottom line work, even though he doesn't have the draft that those guys have up top. And look at that, there's the 20 car. I mentioned earlier that if he could get a caution, he could get back up there, and that he had the speed, and here he is.
Yeah, Danny Myatt, who was farther back in that last green flag run, has been able to pick up on this last restart, and with that extra attrition from some of the guys who were up front here, has allowed him to occupy that vacant spot, and now is into this top 10, trying to reach into the top 5 behind Kevin Steele, but still got some work to do as you're on board with the 77 of Mobley, who now has pressure from Hicksonball and Jack Durham. Looks like Aaron Wineland kind of fell back on the high side just a little bit. He'll get the draft from Durham behind him and Kevin Steele and try to get back up on the high side and try something else to get back up to this race lead. But Bryson Hicksonball now with the charge to the race lead all the way to the bottom. We'll see how this works into turn 1.
Yeah, he's getting the run down on the bottom. I think the bottom has just had so much grip. They've been laying rubber down there all race long, and now they can really just send it down there and make those moves. But I'll tell you, the 77 got a good run out of the corner. He's going to fight back, trying to get down a lane and right up against the door of the 63, trying to reclaim that top spot.
Staying aggressive like he has this entire race, and it's paying off for that 77. Back to the race lead he goes. Now he's going to file in front of the 63, get that drafting help. Now it leaves Jack Durham to fend off on the bottom of the racetrack with Danny Myatt not too far behind. And here comes the push from the 217, going to try to take over second. The 3 Camaro still dominating this race with the Mustang Spice in the middle.
And here comes the 217 trying to get down to the bottom, and he does. The leader just barely getting clear of him as he's going to slot right in between the 77 and the 63. Man, you couldn't have put a piece of paper between those guys, I don't think, right there. But, man, what an impressive move by the 217.
And I think now you're seeing these drivers now starting to go a little bit single file. As soon as I say that, Jonathan Alardo goes to the bottom of Danny Myatt, and now there's a battle with Jack Durham trying to look to the bottom of the 77. But regardless, when you're in this stage, now you're in the final portion of this race. You've got 70 laps to the end and to the checkered flag. I believe there has to be still one pit stop left to make it to the end of this race, and especially to go down fuel, and obviously tires playing a huge factor. So I think maybe in this last stage you might try to have a different perspective of how to attack it, because when you have the stages, you have kind of a cushion to lean off of, and you can be like, okay, maybe I'll stay out for this stage, and when the stage ends, you have that caution to lay off of, so you can go down pit road and try any other strategy you may want to, like we saw Hicksonball do in the end of stage 2. But Andre, if you're one of these drivers here, if you're now attacking this third stage, is there something different? Is there something kind of fragile that you have to handle through the second stage up until the end of this race?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle they have to overcome is just choosing what strategy to go with, because the way I see it, you got 2 options. You can split this run in half, the 70 laps, split it in half, get 4 tires right in the middle, and that's probably going to give you the most speed overall, but that's assuming that everything stays green. If you think there's going to be a caution, I think your best bet's to stay out as long as you can and just wear those tires down to basically nothing, like we saw Wineland and the 77 of Mobley do the last stage there. And it's a tough choice to make, because you don't know what's going to happen. If you pit halfway and then a caution comes out and traps you a lap down, that could be your night over, But at the same time, if it stays green, that could win you the race. So tough choice for these drivers to make.
And we saw the trial and error with Hicksonball when he pitted with just 10 laps to go in the stage. Maybe that could have been, I'm trying to make some guesses, because I remember making a theory that it could have been a move by Hicksonball to stay out on the stage, which he did not do. But maybe, just maybe, it could be a trial and error for what could happen through here on in the rest of this race. If he's able to pit and everyone stays out, maybe and how he fares with the drivers who are on the older tires, and how much he's been able to gap, how long the pit stop was, and how big the gaps are between himself and the drivers ahead of him to have to pick up. That might be something that potentially could help him down the road if we have something like you mentioned, Andre, in that green flag run and we have those pit stops happen. Of course, cautions are not out of the picture. We can still have cautions come out anytime during this race, and we've seen it happen. We can see it once again as you're on board with Eric Wineland, working with Dalton Mobley. I think these guys are kind of stuck together, the dynamic duo here later in this race. I think they've kind of made a name for themselves, both of them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think they've been more than 5 car lengths apart for the last 2 stages. So just absolutely conjoined at this point, just bumping each other and really pushing each other. And I think, sometimes that brings the best out of a driver when they have competition like that that's so close all race long. You're pushing that car harder than you've ever pushed it before. And you're hitting your marks smoother than you've ever hit them before because you have to. When you're going up against a driver like Wineland, you can't be anything less than perfect.
Yeah, and you also have a little more experience now that you've got 134 rotations around this track. You have a little more, comfortability in your car. You know how the car feels on the fresh tires. You know how it gets over the course of the run. Of course, things can change over time, but then you kind of have an idea of what to expect from the car. So that way you can approach it in a different way and handle it better than maybe you did before. Because if you had a mistake, if you maybe used up your equipment too much, if you used up the tires and you're starting to fall back through the order, that could be something to take mind of through the rest of this race and managing yourself on the old tires, because any extra knowledge is great for you whatsoever if it helps you out and it's able to make you, a little bit more smarter on the racetrack and try different, options with your race car and try as much as you can to gain positions and do your best to stay up front. As you see, Bryson Hixenbaugh just took over the race lead once again, leaving Mobley and the 217 of Durham to fight for what looks to be second and third now with the 31 of Wineland. And that falls all the way back to Pearson, the 38, a second group here with Kevin Steele and then Lardo.
Absolutely. I mean, knowing the competition is one of the most important things in a race like this. And the more you drive around somebody, the more you learn. Where do they brake? Where do they accelerate? What kind of setup do they have? Is it short run? Is it long run? What kind of strategies are they keen on taking? And once you compile this information, it makes it a lot easier to try to counter it and do whatever they're not doing. Find the chink in their armor, find the weakness, and capitalize on that.
It's kind of like a mini driver database in their minds, kind of functioning 24/7 around the clock as they're going around this racetrack. And I think the most information you'd have if you were one of these drivers, definitely Eric Wineland on that 77, or the 77 vice versa. You have notes on that 31, or if you're the 31, you have notes on the 77. You know how they approach this track and how they're able to manage themselves over the course of this run. So that's also something that's cool to watch for, as the 38 has fallen a couple spots back. He was in this battle with the 45 of Velardo and Kevin Steele. He's fallen back just a little bit. Still within the draft throw, falling back to Danny Mayad, who we saw up in this group, but ever since this stint has progressed, he's fallen back just a little bit. Nonetheless, still in this top 10 as we see Hixenbaugh continue to lead this field.
Don't look now, but here comes Dalton Mobley once again trying to reclaim that first position, gaining just a little bit, about a tenth or so a lap. Not much, but enough to close the gap on Bryson Hixenbaugh, and they're running very similar lines. I think, honestly, we are on board with Bryson Hixenbaugh right now. Or no, on board with Mobley as he chases Bryson Hixenbaugh. I apologize. And he is just closing that gap.
And you see the gap between these two. Hixenbaugh, the 39.535, and Mobley just like 4 thousandths off of him. So they're pretty even on this racetrack right now. They're pretty close together. You see the gap still just 4 thousandths between each other of the 77 and the 63. So like you said, don't look now. He is making this charge for the race lead very, very soon as you approach just about 60 laps remaining.
I could guarantee you that I think Bryson is driving more with his mirror than he is his windshield at this point. I think he's looking at his mirror, trying to judge what kind of lines the 77 takes. Is he going to send it in on the bottom? Is he going to stay on that loud pedal longer than I am? What is he going to do? Bryson Hixenbaugh doesn't know, so he's got to observe. And, mirror driving is a very real thing in these races, and it's a talent that it takes a while to master, but if you can do it, it helps you a ton.
And I think that 77 also might be trying to look into his mirror, seeing that pink Ford Mustang that he's seen this entire race around his car. And He's probably focusing on that 31 to see if he is starting to slowly pick up to these leaders, and he has kind of done so over the course of these laps. He's been able to gain some time in places where these top two really haven't been able to, and now that he's within drafting distance, he's got that help on his side. He's got that on his back in order to continue to run up to this lead and try to make a case for these drivers up front like he has done all race long. So watch out for Eric Wineland. He continues to run dominantly. I think the driver database in his head is now starting to approach the 77. He knows what to do.
Absolutely correct. But I'll tell you, man, there's something about the setup on that 77 car, I think, that lets him send it into the corner just a little bit deeper than the competition. I've noticed a few times he'll close that gap on entry, and then that gap reopens on the exit. So he's got a bit of a setup that's letting him enter quicker, but he's exiting slower is the cost. So that's going to be something he's got to take into account when he's trying to make these overtakes. He's got to send it in deep enough to clear the competition before he gets to the exit, because that's where he's losing ground.
So while we're under this long green flag run, going to take a moment to have an interview with one of the drivers who had trouble early, currently sitting 15th, 38 laps down, lost his engine earlier in this race. That is the 16 of Ryan Samuelson. We're going to bring him in. And Ryan, welcome to the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy with us?
Yeah, I do.
All right, Ryan. Well, you certainly haven't had the best day. I know that you've fallen back. You're now 38 laps under the lead cars, and I want to ask you, since we didn't get an interview with you earlier, tell us what your experience was behind the wheel when those incidents happened, and anything that really happened that was notable to you behind the wheel.
Well, yeah, I got involved. I got loose off of 2 and unfortunately took 91 with me. I was sorry to him, but for him to react the way he did throughout race to me by sideswiping me while I was just chilling down on the bottom of the track was just unacceptable, and blocking me like the way he did.
Well, Ryan, an unfortunate ending to your night, but I want to ask you if there was something else that maybe you tried to take a little bit differently, if there was anything that you might have wanted to attack differently. Is there any other approach that you might have had that could have possibly helped your race out a little bit more?
I don't quite know. I never really had the opportunity to see what I had with the car throughout the race. I was struggling with loose off the corner, but I feel like I had it fixed, and then the big wreck happened, and I just didn't really have anywhere to go.
All right, Ryan. Well, we hope to see you through these next couple of weeks, and we hope that you have some great racing for the next week, and we wish you luck in the next couple of races coming soon.
Thanks.
Ryan Samuelson out. He came into the infield care center. He's going to be packing up, heading to Watkins Glen the next week. So he's going to try to hit the reset button, try to get that through. As you're looking at Denny Myatt and this battle for what looks to be like 6th place and 7th place. That is Alardo and Pierce, and another battle further up between Kevin Steele and Jack Durham. That is the closest battle up until the drivers up front. And surprisingly, Hicksonbaugh has not been able to gap this rest of these guys, just 2/10 of a second behind, Hicksonbaugh, Mobley is, and Wineland just 2/10 of a second behind Mobley. So these drivers really sticking together. I think draft is just like we've talked about all night. It's kind of like a broken record that, draft is playing such a huge effect, and it's doing so much for these drivers in order to stick with the drivers up front. It's side by side between the 38 and the 45.
Right, and we talked earlier about strategy, and what are you going to do? Are you going to try to split the final stage in half, or are you going to try and run it as long as you can? And I think we've seen that the 77 has shown he prefers long-run strategies. He wants to try and stay out. So I almost wonder if he's not taking it a little easy and not really trying to get around the 63. Because if he's battling with the 63 and trying to pass him, whoa!
And contact between the two. The 45 almost got sent around, but another save. Boy, we've seen so many saves here tonight in Michigan, and this adds on to the list as we saw contact between the 38 of Pierce and the 45 of Alardo. We're going to take a replay and see what happened. This contact happened exactly between turn 3 and 4. That was entering turn 3, and contact, I think the second hit between those two drivers, I think that straightened the car out perfectly and was allowed him to stay out of harm's way and ended up not spinning around. We're going to take a cockpit cam, see exactly what he went through.
Yeah, I tell you, we've seen a lot of impressive saves tonight. A lot of these things that should have wound up being full-on spins or cautions, and these guys have gathered it back up. Really impressive driving by these guys tonight. But before all that was happening, I was mentioning, I think the 77 of Dalton Mobley, he may just be taking it easy and not actually trying to pass the 63, because if he can conserve his tires and sort of pressure the 63 into overdriving, that's going to help him out in the long run. So we're going to see some varying strategies play out as the race comes to a close, and that's going to be really interesting.
And if you watch the real-life NASCAR Cup Series race from right here at Michigan, you saw Kevin Harvick right behind the race leader, Chase Elliott, and he was doing the same thing that Mobley's doing right now, you know, getting good runs off the corners, being close to the leader, but not making any moves and not, you know, trying to push his luck any further than it is, and trying to just keep himself conservative, maintain his equipment for this long run, which surely is happening right now. Could have been stopped by Alardo and Pierce if the 45 hadn't gone around, but luckily no yellow on that front, so still green, as here's a battle between Mabry and Hickenbottom, and the 36 of Knoll is also in this battle as well. So another 3-car battle pretty much spread around this field. We see couplets, and this is a triplet in a case, another triplet between the top 3 leaders as Wineland continues to fall back a couple of tenths behind Mobley and Hixenbaugh. So I think we're just seeing just battle spread around. Even though the field is spread out, there's still action on track still going on.
Oh yeah, when you got a track like this, there's going to be action somewhere in the field with all the drafting going on and everything. But it looks like the 36 is going to get clear of Hickenbottom. Even with a bit of a beat-up car, he's got a little bit of damage on the front there. Hickenbottom now getting the run into the corner, going to try to strike back if he can, but fun battle to watch here.
And here is Kevin Steele and Jack Durham. We've talked about them so much through this race, especially Jack Durham, who's made points for the race lead, and Kevin Steele, who was up there as well. But Kevin Steele has had one of the more, I believe, stealthier races, if you should say, in terms of that he's not really making largely aggressive moves. He's not trying anything too harshly. He's not trying to send it into any corners. He's just trying to keep his race stable and try to keep where he is right now in his Ally Chevrolets. You're on board with him. Looking back to Durham, who's been on his bumper for a handful of laps now as we approach 50 laps remaining. So we're heading into this final stint, Andre. Pit strategy is going to have to start coming into mind for a lot of these drivers, especially your race lead.
Right, you can't put it off any longer. The time to choose what you're going to do is coming quickly. And I don't know, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would assume that Bryson Hixenbaugh is going to try and just cut this in half and short pit. Like I said, I know Bryson pretty well. That tends to be the strategy he goes for. But who knows? Maybe he's going to change things up and surprise the competition here. I don't know. What would you do in this situation, Ken?
I mean, you're looking at gaps that are now starting to approach 2 seconds all the way back to third. Closest battle right now, especially to the leader, is Mobley. Mobley is the closest one to the race leader. And then, of course, Wineland has fallen back. He has now worn out his tires. So I think maybe if you're a driver, it just depends on where you are on the racetrack. If you're up here like Hixenbaugh, I think it is probably the better decision. I'll agree with you on that, to split it through the middle and just be safe on that end. But if you're one of the drivers a little farther back, maybe Kevin Steele, maybe Durham all the way back to Hickenbottom. Those are the last drivers on the lead lap. Those are the times where you can stay out, times where you can start saving a little more and possibly staying up front and leading a couple laps before putting yourself a gap between yourself and the leaders, and then gaining track position off of that. Because if there's no yellows, if you don't have the fastest car, the best way definitely to gain positions is through the pit strategy. And if you're able to loop around that pit strategy and you're able to gain advantages, that's the best way to gain points through the end of this race if it stays green all the way through.
Right, and you got to think there's maybe a little bit of mind games going on too, because maybe the 77 is following the 63. Maybe Mobley's thinking I'll pit if the 63 pits, but at the same time Bryson's thinking I'll pit if the 77 pits. So maybe they're just kind of playing chicken here, trying to see who brings it down first.
Yeah, and that happens also under caution as well. I think obviously at a way higher speeds, it's way more dangerous to kind of back that thing up. And we got one driver down pit road. As soon as I say that, that is the 45 of Alardo, who we almost saw go around, but he was able to keep it together. He starts this pit cycle, so he'll be the first driver on pit road and officially start what might be the cycle that'll last all the way to the end of this race if we don't get a yellow flag from here on out. And not many other drivers pitting. Still nobody other than that 45 is pitted. So now it's just a waiting game to see which drivers pit in first, which drivers pit in second, which drivers go later, which drivers stay out, and which drivers are able to lead laps at the end of this thing and gain some points.
And I think the 45 was kind of strong-armed into short pitting. I mean, at that point, Once you've nearly spun out, you flat spotted your tires. There's really no point in staying out trying to stretch it.
Yeah.
It could definitely come out in his favor, though. Who knows? I mean, if these guys try to stay out as long as they can, and whoa, we got problems.
What happened to the 45 there? He is a skewed car on the racetrack right now. I'm not sure whether something might have happened or he might have had contact with somebody. You see him sideways. They're pretty much trying to keep that car straight. That is definitely some hard damage to that 45 machine. I believe it might have been getting off of pit road. We'll take a replay and see exactly what the cause of that was. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly what happened there. You see on pit road here, the 45, but we weren't seeing his car like that when he was battling with Pierce and when he was behind there. I'm not sure whether the damage might have come from that or it might have been something along those lines. Maybe something else just by himself that we didn't catch. But very bizarre for the 45.
Yeah, that is a weird situation. We didn't notice the crab walking. Now, there's a replay. He got into the wall as he entered the pits, and yep, that'll do it.
Oh, that was just entering pit road and gets caught with the wall, and that was enough to skew the car. And there was his pit stall right there waiting for him. So we didn't catch that when he was entering pit road. So I guess not really a pit. It was supposed to be a pit cycle, and then it ended up being something that hurt his car significantly. So unfortunate for that 45 that has happened. But still, drivers that have left to go down pit road in these final 43 laps. Hixenbaugh still up front. Mobley still behind. Wineland now just about 6 seconds back until you reach 3 seconds from between Wineland and Kevin Steele. Then goes Durham, Pierce, Myatt, Hickenbottom, Mabry, and Knoll, which rounds out your top 10. And then starts the drivers a lap down, starting with the driver we just saw involved in an incident, Alardo. But 10 drivers now in this lead lap. And like I mentioned, attrition is playing such a huge role. You're seeing that attrition starting to take an effect, especially later in this race. And I think those early cautions might have played a larger effect than I thought it might have.
Right, and you know we've seen a lot of drivers DNF or drop out or go many laps down, and that is why viewers at home, that is why drivers like Cameron Stone, even though he's 13, we got an issue with the 17. It sounds like.
No, I think the 217 is down pit road and get a pit cycle. Yeah.
All right, so the pit cycle has started.
The 217.
But anyway, at this point, I've kind of lost my train of thought there, but at this point, you really need to think about the fact that Bryson Hixenbaugh is, let's see, how many laps is he in on these tires? He is now, yeah, he's a good 40 laps in on these tires. So 37.09 down pit road. We got some more pit road action, and the leaders are still staying out. That's kind of crazy to me. I would have thought that Bryson Hixenbaugh and Mobley would have been some of the first down pit road.
Yeah, I thought Hixenbaugh and Mobley, especially Wineland. I thought especially Wineland with the points on his playoffs. I think he might have just tried a different strategy, but he has not. And everyone pretty much in this top 5 have yet to pit. It has pretty much been Hickenbottom. You saw down pit road. The 217 of Durham has now hit pit road. So these drivers are now the oldest on their tires, and still need to go down pit road in order to make it all the way to the end. Fuel-wise, as the 38 of Pierce now goes down pit road, and continuing, the drivers further back are making the first stops down pit road. This is definitely interesting.
Yeah, things are heating up in this pit cycle, and back to the attrition that you were talking about before. When the pit cycle started, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but that's why people like Cameron Stone, who is multiple laps down and heavily damaged, that's why they stay in the race and continue to turn laps, because as drivers start to DNF or have bigger issues, they're still gaining positions and gaining points that goes towards the playoffs at the end of the season. So, when these drivers wreck and they get some damage, it's always a good idea to stay out as long as you can and just salvage what you can.
And especially if you're able to make minimum speed, as now the 3 of Mabry goes down pit road. So he's another driver in the latter half of this top 10 to go down pit road. We still have yet to see any of the leaders go down, of Wineland, Steele, Myatt, Mobley, and of course Hixenbaugh, as now I believe Hixenbaugh has reached pit road, or at least he has lost a position to Mobley, and there he is down pit road. So he is now into gonna get service and gonna get tires and fuel. So now that leaves Mobley and Wineland left to fend off, and they're gonna probably try and complete the rest of the cycle all the way through. But here comes Hixenbaugh. He's gonna get his tires and fuel.
This pit cycle has been so spread out with a lot of different strategies that I honestly could not tell you how this is going to shake out, because I think Bryson Hixenbaugh, he's definitely going to gain some time on the 77 of Mobley, as well as Wineland, just for having come down pit road earlier. But he's also going to lose some time on some of these guys behind him that pitted 4 or 5 laps sooner. So this is really going to change things up in the running order, I think.
So pretty much everyone, apart from this top 4, have yet to pit. You saw the 36 of Noel dip down pit road, so he now falls back a lap down to these drivers. And there goes Kevin Steele down pit road. So now that leaves Myatt, Wineland, and Mobley left off of the pit road cycle. So they'll definitely be the last ones to go down pit road, as here is Hixenbaugh going to try to unlap himself on the fresh tires as soon as he can to kind of decrease that deficit. And you see him easily go by the 77 and still staying out.
That's surprising to me. If I had the 63 coming to unlap himself, I think that would be a sign for me to bring it down pit road. But who knows? Maybe he is just really committed to this long run strategy. Maybe he thinks we're going to get a yellow flag, which is possible. Yeah, we've had the field kind of thin out, but yellow flags are never out of the equation, like you had mentioned earlier. So it's a viable strategy. He's just going to have to hope that it plays out.
And the caution could happen with any cars around the racetrack, even the lap cars, if you have an issue getting around them. If you are like Elardo and Pierce, who were side by side, and having that contact, that affects you dramatically. That could bring out a yellow, as now finally Dalton Mobley dips down pit road. That'll leave Wineland to be the last one off, and Danny Myatt. Those will be the final 2. And Wineland will stay out. He'll definitely lead this lap, as Danny Myatt is the second car that is yet to hit pit road. So we'll see if those 2 will complete this cycle, and it looks like Myatt is going to do it. Wineland will be the last one to fend off by himself. He'll definitely complete this cycle. We'll see where the rest of the field shakes out. I think Hixenbaugh might have the advantage.
Definitely. I mean, pitting a few laps before the 31 and the 77 is going to play out in his favor, at least for right now. As time goes on, his tires are going to be older than everybody else's, or at least the 77. So, maybe as time goes on, this strategy will kind of balance itself out versus the other one. But in the immediate short term, I think this is going to benefit Bryson Hixenbaugh quite a bit.
So you're on board with Wineland, as he just got passed by the 44 of Kevin Steele. You see him between the 31 and Dalton Mobley, who went down pit road. You see how significantly different they are. A 49.739, 40.196. Those 2 gapped by at least 27 seconds. And there's Hixenbaugh, who's now just reached 26 seconds behind your race leader. So now it's just all up to Wineland to go down pit road, make his strategy, and try something out, and definitely complete this cycle as it goes down. But he is still yet to hit pit road. I'm not sure whether he was saving within that final run, or whether he's just trying to maximize this the most he can and stay out as long as he can. But definitely interesting strategy. I'm not sure whether Wineland is doing this for any sort of reason, or maybe he has a trick up his sleeve to try and keep this lead as best as he can.
Right. Now, the last time across the line, Bryson Hixenbaugh ran a 38-second lap, and Wineland ran a 40-second lap. So we definitely got a big disparity there. And, man, this is definitely getting a little bit more hectic than I would have expected.
So 33 laps remaining, and there is your race leader finally down pit road. Eric Wineland will be the last one to complete this pit cycle. That'll leave the lead to Hixenbaugh, Mobley, Durham. Those drivers coupled up together by just a handful of seconds. Mobley and Durham being the closest ones right now. But this leaves Hixenbaugh to pick up this gap, boys, down pit road, and definitely take over this race lead, unless Wineland is able to get out before him and he's able to kind of keep up with the race leader, stay with him rather than getting past and losing positions out on the racetrack. We'll just have to see as we approach 31 laps remaining in this event. Final stint, you got to do everything you can to stay out here and do as much as you can on these fresh tires, as the field is completely spread out.
Right, and unfortunately, I just don't see Wineland getting out ahead of the 63. Those lap times for the last few laps before he pitted were so much slower than those who had pitted. He lost a ton of time. But, I mean, we know Wineland, he's a great driver. He's a fast driver. If anybody can make that gap up, it's definitely him. But I think once this cycles through, Hixenbaugh is going to come out with quite a massive lead as he works his way around the lap car of Hickenbottom in the 09.
So that puts Hickenbottom a lap down, and now he has to fend for the rest of these other drivers. So now just 8 cars left on this lead lap. Hixenbaugh is putting his time, so the rest of this field certainly trying to carry this to the end of this race and lead this final stint until we reach the checkered flag here at Michigan International Speedway. So looking into this top 10, you have Hixenbaugh, now Mobley falling back about 7 seconds behind, then Durham, Steele, Winelands, who went down pit road, he falls back to 5th, then Pierce in the 38, Myatt in 7th, and then Knoll into 8th place, and then of course Hickenbottom, who we just saw get lapped by your race leader, leading to Mavry, Drumhiller, Stone, Elardo, Lester, and Samuelson, 53 laps down. Those starts the drivers who have been eliminated from this race. So if you're the 77 right now, 30 laps to go, are you banking on a yellow? Are you just trying to look for a yellow in order to stack the field back up and continue to level the playing field with Hixenbaugh to try to make a run for the race win?
Oh yeah, at this point, I think Mobley is really relying on a caution. I think that's kind of his only chance. Staying out so long just really was detrimental to his strategy here. I mean, we've got a 6.9 second gap to second place, which at a track like this, where you're going 200 miles an hour plus, is absolutely a huge gap. Now, the gap behind him back to Jack Durham isn't too big. He's only 3 seconds behind Mobley. So you kind of maybe have a battle brewing back there if you can just get a sniff of that draft and get up there. But right now, we just got a lot of separation, and for a lot of these guys, a caution is going to be their last-ditch effort.
Yeah, especially if you're all the way down to 8th where Knoll is and Danny Myatt, and if you're so far 34 seconds back and you're almost about to be lapped, you have to bank on that yellow flag, because if a yellow flag comes out, you're able to re-rack them, you're able to stay on the same strategy as the rest of the field and have a shot at gaining positions or even taking the lead in Mobley's case, or even in the case of Durham and Steele, who if they had a restart, they'd be in the second row and they'll still be able to get draft off of the leaders like we've seen in all the restarts in this race so far. So it's not definitely out of the question for those guys, but it definitely, if you're so far back, a yellow would be phenomenal right now, as being so far back to Hixenbaugh. But we were watching those times between Mobley and your race leader, and they weren't really too far back. You see Mobley is just 6.8 seconds off. He's kind of lost a little bit, gained some a little bit. He fell back to just about a little bit over 7 seconds, but he was able to pick that back up, now down to 6.7. So maybe we could see a possible comeback for the 77 if that 63 is using up his stuff a little more. And since the 77 went down pit road, I think earlier than the 63, that changes things dramatically, because even though a little bit fresher tires can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Lap 173, Dalton Mobley ran a 38.8, while Bryson Hixenbaugh ran a 39.1. So that is a 0.3 of a second faster lap for the car in P2. He is on the hunt.
So 27 laps to go, you're on board with Dalton Mobley, and there is your comparison between the two leaders in first and second as he goes around the lap car of Cameron Stone in the 57, getting around the 3 of Mabry as well, who's now stuck a lap down, and he is currently in 10th. But you see that Mobley's just a little bit faster now. He is slowly peeking into this gap. He's slowly peeling that away, now down to 5.8 seconds. So maybe Mobley is just trying to use whatever he can under his equipment that he has right now on the tires to use that, because they're good all the way in the fuel until the end. You don't have to worry about fuel from here on out, because you have, if you're good on fuel from that pit cycle, you don't have much to worry about. The only thing to worry about is track position, the relatives, and tires. And right now Mobley is slowly cutting into this lead, 5.3 seconds now. So this could be the battle for the race lead soon, as here's a battle for 3rd and 4th. And for 3rd, that's Kevin Steele, Jack Durham. First time we see these two together once again ever since that pit cycle. Now they're going to try to battle for the podium spot.
Yeah, Kevin Steele on the move, taking over P3. I mean, that was a textbook pass. You don't get much cleaner than that. And he made up a bit of a gap. He was kind of a ways behind the 217 of Durham, and he made the charge and got around him. But I'll tell you what, you made a good point earlier about the 77's tires, Mobley's tires being 3 or 4 laps fresher than Hixenbaugh's. that is huge at this point. Now that they've been out for a while, the tires are getting warm, they're starting to wear. Hixenbaugh is feeling it a little bit more than Mobley at this point, and that could be the difference.
Yeah, it definitely could be. And if you're Hixenbaugh, you're starting to see that, you're maybe starting to hear, or maybe starting to see that relative on the bottom of your screen in iRacing, that the lead is slowly cutting down. You saw it go from 7.0 seconds to now what looks to be 5.0, 4.9. So slowly cutting in. Maybe Mobley's just trying to use his stuff the best way he can. And with those 3-lap pressure tires, Hixenbaugh is probably feeling the effects a little more. And maybe this could be his weak spot in terms of winning or losing this race. Still 23 laps to go to decide that, and still a long way to go as you see Hixenbaugh down to the back straightaway into turn 3. And there is your comparison between the top two. 4.9 seconds still separates the two, and it's kind of stayed there between the past 2 laps, slowly cutting in. Mobley is definitely starting to breathe onto the back of Bryson Hixenbaugh very, very soon.
Yeah, 39.5 to a 39.3. That was 0.2, and this time around it's going to be 1/10 faster. Actually, a little bit equalized there, 39.482 to a 39.409. So the lap times are starting to equalize. That could be the tire wear finally starting to catch up with Bolton. But who knows? Maybe he just had an off lap and he's going to be right back on top of it next time around. But he's already closed the gap more than I ever would have expected. He's doing a heck of a job wheeling that thing here at Michigan. And man, I tell you, it's a shame that Kevin Steele is 12 seconds back because he is flying. His lap times are right there with the leaders.
Yeah, Kevin Steele is 12 seconds back. He still has time, I would say, to probably get up. There's still a good amount of time left to get up. But when you're trying to catch so much, when you're trying to get as much as you can, get every edge you can, even the fresher tires will start to get to you, like you said, where you may have the fresher tires, but then as soon as you start to use them up, then they start to fall back again. And then you don't have that grip to lean on. You don't have the fresher tires to lean on unless a yellow comes out. And then you could be equalized or even worse than the driver in front of you that you're trying to chase. As you just saw Durham now fall a little bit back to Kevin Steele. Kevin Steele 12.6 seconds behind your race leaders, now just 12.5. So he's been kind of equalized there where he is and where he stands right now, as opposed to these two leaders who continue to kind of work back and forth between Mobley and Hixenbaugh. But now that we're under this long green flag run and now we're just about 20 laps to go, I kind of want to discuss the next tracks ahead because they're just so different, just so many different disciplines of racing that you have to face. And we don't see a track like Michigan in this season at all in the playoffs. You don't see it from the next 3 races onto the playoffs. You don't see an auto club. You don't see another Michigan race. You just see a couple of other disciplines of racing. You see road course racing next week, then short track racing right after the Monster Mile. And then you go to the World Center of Racing at Daytona International Speedway. And then, of course, it's a mix between Super Speedway and Talladega in the playoffs. It's a 1.5 milers, much like Kansas, Texas, Las Vegas. And then you reach to the short tracks like Richmond, Bristol, and Martinsville, and then Phoenix to end the season out. So if you're still in this race, and especially for Hixenbaugh, drivers that are, locked in, Kevin Steele, the drivers that are locked into the playoffs, is it more so thinking about this race right now and just trying to hold on, or is it just more so focusing on Watkins Glen, focusing on Dover, and focusing on Daytona in the weeks ahead?
Well, I'll tell you, when you're driving these cars, when you're in a race like this, especially if you're Bryson Hixenbaugh and you're trying to maintain that lead, you're kind of tunnel visioned in on this race. Like you're focused on the now. But I guarantee you, the second these guys cross the line, no matter what position they're in, they're looking ahead. They're looking at Watkins Glen. They're looking at Daytona. Those are 2 treacherous tracks. I mean, when it comes to road racing, especially in these stock cars, you have so much horsepower on such skinny tires. These things are hard to handle. I mean, harder than it looks. And these guys make it look easy, but it is rough. And that's why you see these road course ringers that just have that ability. And it's going to be interesting to see who makes their charge at Watkins Glen, knowing that maybe some of these guys that aren't so hot on ovals are going to come out swinging it at a road course. That could change things big time. Daytona, I mean, that's a gamble. That's anybody's game.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be something that they're thinking about going forward, how crazy these tracks we're going to are coming up.
Yeah, and in Watkins Glen and in Dover, you have a 2-race stretch where you're running the lower downforce package and higher power. With the package that they're running right now here in Michigan and that they will run at Daytona, 550 horsepower. You have the large splitter and the large spoiler, gives you a lot of downforce to kind of back off of. And then When you get to Watkins Glen, Dover, you have the short spoiler and you have 750 horsepower under the hood. So you have a big difference between the two, and you have to really handle those beasts differently than you would here in Michigan at all. And then especially at Dover, Dover's such a treacherous racetrack, and it's just so tough. The wall comes at you very quick. It is just a tough racetrack to maneuver around, and I assume that it's going to be tough for a lot of these drivers to really get through. As you're looking at the comparison between Kevin Steele and Jack Durham, considerably close together. Jack Durham still a little bit farther back, just about half a second between the two. And as I've been looking at through these top two, and Hixenbaugh and Mobley got as close as just about 5.1 seconds to about 4.9, and then he's fallen back now to 5.7. So it has fallen back significantly for Mobley, and also for Kevin Steele, who's now 15 seconds behind Hixenbaugh. So the tires are starting to eat up at this 77, and especially with the drivers behind, and this could potentially give Hixenbaugh a good win here and a 10th win of the season. How great would that be?
Oh, he'd definitely be ecstatic about it. I know he's been talking a lot about wanting to get 10, just for the round number, But I really think the 77 might have burned his stuff up quite a bit making that charge. I mean, to close the gap as much as he did is nothing to scoff at. I mean, it was impressive. But to do that, you got to sacrifice your equipment. Unfortunately, I just don't think it held up for him enough. Again, a yellow flag is probably what he's hoping for, and it's still not out of the question. We got a lot of lap traffic. And we got a battle for ninth right now. Hickenbottom and Mabry in the number 3 car as they go side by side.
Yeah, these are drivers trapped a lap down, but this is 4 position nonetheless. Hickenbottom 10th, Mabry into 9th, still along with each other. They won't get the free pass if the yellow were to come out now, because Danny Myatt will occupy that spot, as well as the 36 of Knoll. So for any position you gain under a lap down, if you're hoping for a yellow, and if that yellow comes out, you really want to be at the front of that to get that lucky dog, get the free pass, get back on this lead lap, try to get back in the race, and try to muster a better finish. But nonetheless, even though they're a lap down, 9th, 10th isn't too terrible considering the amount of attrition we've had. Running a top 10 still gives you a good amount of points to kind of set you up for the next couple of races. And especially if you're a playoff driver like Hickenbottom, who's locked in, but not with a win, he's locked in on points. It's very good for him. For Brian Mabry, this is great for him considering that Cody Bird isn't in this race and Ryan Samuelson has had trouble. So if you're now top 10, great points for you. And it could really help them going into the rest of the playoffs, as I think Mabry might be slowing down, maybe just to try and get these guys out their back as Hickenbottom's in the wall.
Yeah, he got up into that wall and sparks were flying. I think he gathered it up, but I can't quite tell how much damage he has. That's going to affect him quite substantially, I think, here.
And you see the damage to the right side of the race car. He definitely has a little bit of damage there and some dents on that Ford Mustang. I'm not sure why he might have hit that wall. Maybe it was just trying to fend away from the drivers who are on the lead lap, and almost again in the wall he goes. But I guess it's just trying to get around, Steele and Durham and Wineland, who are now on the lead lap and are trying to fight for position between these three. Just about kind of a second of pretty much gaps to these 3 guys, and really, different. When you're under a lap down, and when you're trying to get away from the leaders, sometimes it can be easy, but it's kind of harder than it looks, because you have to try and anticipate what line they're going to do unless they communicate. If they don't tell you what line they're taking, you kind of have to make a wild guess as to where they're going, so you can end up taking up the same line as they do, maybe get into a little bit of altercation, have an issue with them that you maybe don't want to have because of the miscommunication. And maybe that might have happened with Hickenbottom there, but he is now falling to Brian Mabry there side by side.
Communication is key when it comes to navigating lap traffic, and sometimes it's nobody's fault. Sometimes 2 guys just go for the same real estate accidentally. But you're absolutely right. You can't reliably make that wild guess and hope that it's going to work 100% of the time. And that's why in real life, when you watch the real NASCAR races, you see these guys getting on the radio, hollering at their spotters to tell the lap cars to get out of the way. And you think, well, maybe they're going a little bit overboard, but really they're not. The lap traffic is very unnerving when you're in a good spot and you're maybe in the lead and just trying to bring it home safely. It gets a little stressful.
Yeah, it definitely does. As you see, I believe that's Cameron Stone. No, not Cameron Stone. That is Ryan Samuelson in the 16 and getting out of the way for the leader. Hickenbaugh, who has just crossed the finish line with just 10 laps remaining in this race, and now just 9. So 9 rotations around this 2-mile racetrack to take his 10th win of the season. Another great finish for him if he's able to cap this off. Unless a yellow comes out and changes the entire game up, which doesn't look to be the case right now as you see him go around. Now that's Cameron Stone in the 57 going around him. So lots of work for Mobley, who's fallen back to 7 seconds now. So it doesn't look like he'll take an effect unless a yellow comes out. He definitely has to bank on that in this final stint. So 8 laps to go for Hixenbaugh. He's ready to take his 10th win of the season. And especially going into the rest of the season, how dominant he's been, it would be great for him as we got a battle between Wineland, Durham falling back behind Steele. So they'll be battling for what looks to be the top 5 spot and 4th. And maybe this could be the possible caution if these two tangle together.
Yeah, I mean, it really is difficult to sustain a side-by-side battle when the tires are this worn. Sometimes the car just kind of gets a mind of its own and wants to slide up the track. So battling like this could be kind of risky. Although I trust these guys. They're good drivers. They know what they're doing. I'm not going to say that they're potential cautions, but I will say it is a little risky. It's kind of a tough break for Wineland's strategy not to play out in his favor. I mean, just the speed he's had all night, winning both the stages. He had a heck of a night, and unfortunately now he is in the graces of luck at this point, hoping for a caution. And if he gets one, who knows? He might have a chance, but right now just battling it out with that 217 for the 4th position.
And to the bottom of the racetrack, not enough. As you see now, here's a triplet of drivers. That was Dulaney and the 38 of Pierce. And seems to be these 3 drivers are the closest ones on the racetrack. Pretty much a couple of tenths separate these guys. Kevin Steele being the one in 3rd right now. He currently has the advantage over Steele and over Wineland and Durham, I should say. But they've been all together. They've been considerably close to each other in this last run. They might want to try to bounce off each other, take some positions while they can and get any extra point they can, especially if you're Kevin Steele, if you're Eric Wineland, who's trying to get points up to the 2nd, who's currently 3rd right now in the point standings. You know, if you're Jack Durham, you're not necessarily in this points battle, but you're just trying to keep your sake and just stay where you are. Top 5 finish is definitely good for you, and it's definitely a feel-good moment if you're able to keep yourself where you are. And 6 cars are now just on this lead lap, so lots of drivers stuck a lap down, but 5 laps to go for the 63 of Hixenbaugh to take his 10th win. He's still on the charge, getting this done. Now 8 seconds separating him and Mobley.
Yeah, and on the broadcast, we're on board with Wineland as he runs down the 48, or at least he attempts to. These guys are probably one of the closest battles on the track right now. As you can see, the lap time differential is almost non-existent, a 39.758 to a 39.621. Very close indeed. But man, I tell you, the 63 had a scary sight out of his windshield there not too long ago as he was coming up on 2 lap cars at one time that both had pretty heavy damage, and now another lap car in his windshield with substantial damage, hopefully calling out his line and letting the leader know what's going on. But if I'm BX, I'm sweating right now. And it looks like the 38 he's about to go a lap down. And there he goes.
Yeah, he will be another driver set a lap down. At least 5 cars on this lead lap, and the 217 of Durham to fight for this lead lap spot as we approach 3 laps to go. But I was just about to mention this as we were talking about it. It's kind of late to the conversation, but regardless, I'll just bring it up anyway since we're in this final stand, and looks like Hixenbaugh will take his win. But you know, it hasn't been updated. It's probably not going to be, considering this schedule is set in stone. But recently, iRacing added an update to the Daytona road course, adding the final chicane at the front stretch for the NASCAR Cup Series, who's going to take a trip there next weekend and to go down the road course. As you see, a battle for 3rd between Steele and Wineland. They'll two be fighting side by side and trying to use every lane they can. But Andre, the Daytona road course and the road courses between those two has almost contact between those guys. Oh my goodness, it is close. But the Daytona road course, such an interesting track, and I know these drivers probably won't visit it, but I think next season, you know, something you might want to think about and something you might want to take practice for going into the Roval at the end of the round of 12.
Right. I mean, get as much road course experience as you can, because I could definitely foresee the Daytona road course being a mainstay in the schedule in real life from here on out. And if that's the case, these guys will definitely have to race it at some point or another. So the sooner you get practicing, the better. But man, this battle between the 44 and the 31 has been absolutely exciting to watch. I mean, it's only for 3rd place, but they are still giving it their all. And that just shows how competitive these drivers are, how they will try to get every last point, every last position, and they will do whatever it takes to do so. But just great drives out of both of these guys right now.
and an insane run for that 63 who leads him to the final lap. He's going to take one more trip around this 2-mile oval and possibly take his 10th win this season. What a great run for Hixenbaugh. Tried pitting in stage 1 and did not work, but was able to come back on the pit strategy in this final stint where it mattered the most. Off of turn 3 and 4, the 63 of Bryson Hixenbaugh will have a 10-win season, and he'll get his 10th right here at Michigan. What a drive for Bryson Hixenbaugh. Takes another win and another playoff point to his advantage. More momentum to him going into Watkins Glen next week.
You know, I'm looking at his driver rail there, and I don't think he has any room for any more stickers.
He does not. He definitely does not. And there is the battle for third between Wineland and Steele. Wineland gets it over the 44, so that battle ends with Wineland. A podium finish for him. Nonetheless, a great move for him at the end of that one. Mobley finishes in second, 9 seconds behind. Did not have enough to get to the race leader. Jack Durham finishes inside this top 5 and then starts the drivers a lap down. But nonetheless, Bryson Hixenbaugh is going to come off turn 4 with that dirty Chevrolet Camaro, but he's done a lot of work and it has paid off significantly. 10 wins in a season, unbelievably dominant. Gonna burn it down in front of the virtual crowd and the virtual stands here at Michigan International Speedway. What a win for him, definitely deserving.
Absolutely a good day for Bryson Hixenbaugh. Not so much a great day for his team as a whole, but you know, if the Patriarch gets a win, that's a good day for the team, I suppose.
So unbelievable race for Bryson Hixenbaugh, and that ends our coverage. And we're gonna, you see him burning it down now in front of the start-finish line there and burning his rubber. But as we go over that, we're gonna take a short break and kind of get things situated and get a little bit of a breather for what's about to come. We've got post-race coverage coming next, including the interviews with your race winner, the guys finished behind him. What a race here in Michigan. Congratulations to Bryson Hixenbaugh. We'll be right back for more. Stay tuned. We got more coming up.
the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome back to Michigan International Speedway, where we have had a spectacle here in the Irish Hills, and nonetheless, the driver who's been dominant all season takes his 10th win. Bryson Hicksonbaugh, your winner, into victory lane, and we'll just bring him in from victory lane here, and we'll see how he feels about taking his 10th win. Bryson, welcome to the 3Y2V booth. You got a copy with us?
I do.
Bryson, 10th win of the season. It must feel amazing to get that. And it's such a great accomplishment with all the win stickers on your car. You're going to have to plaster another one, and you're probably not going to have enough space for all of them very soon. But I want you to tell us about this race here in Michigan. I know that you've had a good battle with Mobley, Wineland, Kevin Steele, Jack Durham, a couple of drivers who were up there, Cam Caldwell. Just tell us how that run started and really how your car was feeling through the draft and how you were feeling about the race, especially through the long run.
Yeah, this track is pretty interesting now in this package. It's kind of half a plate race and then half a regular track. It's all about the draft for like the first 15, 20 laps of the run, and then you can kind of pull away. It's hard to break the draft even when it gets strung out, so you'll get pockets of cars coming together, but I had a long enough run there that we ended up dropping to just me and Dalton coming into the first pit stop, or the last pit stop. And then I pit before him and was able to break away, and then it was just hoping that he wasn't going to catch me on those fresh tires.
Yeah, and you mentioned that second run in that final stint in the race in stage 3, and you and Dalton Mobley. And Dalton Mobley was slowly catching you a little bit, and then he started to fall off. But was there any sort of worry, or did you have anything in your mind, in the back of your mind, that there might be a caution that comes out through the race that might have changed everything, or maybe that Mobley was going to catch up, or anything along those lines?
You're always worried about a caution because, like I said, with it being plate race on a short run, it basically becomes anyone's game. And I felt I had the win with like 20 laps to go as long as the caution didn't come out, because Dalton was catching me for a little bit, but he didn't catch me enough to get back into the draft. And then we just kind of evened out there and rode for the last laps, and it was just making sure I could get around the lapped cars, watch out for any wrecks, and hope we stayed green.
All right, Bryson. Well, win number 10 is just an amazing feat here in Michigan. And going into Watkins Glen, Dover, Daytona, the final 3 races until we reach those playoffs, is there any sort of mindset or game plan that you have going into those 3, knowing that it's just 3 different ballparks in general and 3 different challenges that you'll have to face, and further going into the playoffs starting at Darlington?
Yeah, Watkins Glen is one that I'm really looking forward to. I love stock cars on road courses, just how terrible they are to drive, honestly, and it's a lot of fun doing that. So looking forward to doing that. Dover is going to be interesting. I ran well at Dover earlier in the year, but ended up getting wrecked out. So it'd be nice to go back there and run well and actually finish well. Daytona, just all about survival and maybe steal a playoff point if I can there.
All right, Bryson. Well, an amazing win for you here tonight. And before we let you go to celebrate your victory, you got any team sponsors or pretty much anyone you'd like to shout out for making tonight's effort happen?
I'd like to give a shout out to all my family that's watching. Got family in Iowa and Missouri that's been tuning in, and they finally got to see me win one of the broadcasted races.
Well, heartfelt message there for you, and we hope that they enjoyed the show and watching you win here tonight in Michigan. We hope to see you next week coming to Watkins Glen and Dover, Daytona, along to the playoffs, and we wish you luck in this next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Glad to have you guys here to broadcast.
Congratulations, BX.
Thanks.
Bryson Nixonball with his 10th win out of the booth, and what an amazing win for him. And of course, in front of your family, it always feels good when they're watching you and supporting you along the way. Always a great thing to see. Andre, I'll leave you to go to second, where I think one of the more compelling drivers that we've seen this race, and one of the more breakout ones, Dalton Mobley in the 77. We'll bring him in.
Dalton Mobley, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Man, what a run you had today, bringing it home P2. That is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Fantastic drive tonight. All race long, you seem to be battling a lot with the 31 car and of Wineland, and you guys just couldn't get away from each other. How tough was it tonight to just constantly be around other drivers, constantly in traffic, and never really have a second to breathe?
It's pretty tough, man. The car was pretty loose on the get-go, so it was very, very tough. It's not to me, everyone had a long run car. 31 car was very, very good also, especially at the end of that stage 2. That stage 2 battle was phenomenal between the both of us. So it was a battle all night long, but like you said, very, very happy to come back. To come home second.
Absolutely. I noticed you tend to lean towards the long run strategies. You tried to keep your car out as long as you could, really stretch those tires. Is there a method to the madness?
Yeah, the setup is a long run setup, so the car is a little moody, so it starts off extremely loose, and it gets a little tight, and then about 25-30 laps in, it gets perfect. So yeah, I tried to stretch it out as long as I possibly could, and it worked out.
All right, well, like I said, that fantastic job. Congratulations, you were battling it out with some of the best in the league and making your name known. So great run and congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Just blessed to have a good car.
Anybody you'd like to shout out?
No, I just like to give glory to Jesus, man. Just thank you so much for allowing me to do what I love to do.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, Dalton.
Thank you, man. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
That was Dalton Mobley finishing second after a great run and putting himself on the map in the Galaxy Cup Series at Michigan. We'll slip back to third. Well, we'll find a driver who led a good portion of this race, fell back, and came back to finish third over Kevin Steele. A great battle in those final laps. We'll bring him into the booth. Eric Wineland, welcome to the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy with us?
Yes, sir. I got you guys.
All right. Well, this is the third time we're meeting up, so I know that we're kind of a little bit familiarized. You won stage 1, you won stage 2, you went into stage 3 with kind of a momentum based. You had that momentum from those 2 stage wins, and going into that final stint with those drivers up front, and though that last pit cycle there with Hickson-Baugh and Mobley and battling with Kevin Steele at the end. Tell us how that car felt throughout this race, and especially over the course of the long run, like we saw so many times here tonight.
Well, Kenneth, the car felt pretty good. If I could keep the damage off of it, it would have been great. But we fired off real loose after about 5 laps, and then that looseness would kind of dial itself into a little bit of tightness throughout the long run, which started to hinder me a little too much. And then we saw how I fell off the draft there of Bryson and Dalton. Those guys were just that little bit better on the long run. I got to get back to the drawing board on some of the setup ideas, but just battled that all night. That stage 2 finish got that little bit of damage there. I probably should have, in hindsight 2020, right? I should have probably fixed it all up. I had a little bit of optional to take, and then didn't help trying to knock the wall down once off of 4 when I was pushing just a little too hard to keep up. But the car finally came around in that final stint to be able to hold Kevin off.
Yeah, and you had a lot to work with Kevin Steele, and you guys are battling through the entire final stint. It was a lot of fun to watch in those closing laps. But Eric, I know that you had you mentioned about your car and how it was there, and you had the damage, and the pit cycle really changed the way the race handled, and no yellows. Was there really anything you wanted to try differently? Was there really anything you think in hindsight probably could have been a lot differently, apart from fixing the damage and getting that situated out, to possibly could have given you advantage over Hickson-Baugh and Mobley?
I'm not totally sure. I actually probably should go back here and review kind of what I did here in the footage. Always more film to watch, right? But nah, it basically, I played the start of each stage pretty patiently with the help of my spotter, Tyler Sifford. And so just kind of bided my time, maybe biding the time a little too long behind the guys in front of me there. Took a little bit of effort to get by the 217 there after he would fall off his cliff after the new tire hero, right? So hindsight 2020, like I said, there's not too much different I would think I would do, but I don't know, maybe if I go back and take a look at all of this, all the angles and everything, maybe I can find something.
All right, Eric. Well, nonetheless, a P3 finish for you over Kevin Steele, just behind Mobley and Hicksonball, and a great race for you. And before we let you go off to Watkins Glen next week, you got any sponsors or teams or pretty much anyone you'd like to shout out or thank for making tonight's effort go down?
Yeah, Kenneth. Huge shout out to Tyler Sifford. He was the spotter tonight on my box. Also calling some strategy, talking it through with me. I can't thank his help enough, or can't thank him enough for his help there. That definitely willed me home, especially some of the fun calls we had tonight. Huge shout out to Michael Watkins for the setup help as well this week. Trying to get that car dialed in. Like I said, still got to get back to the drawing board, but I think that's more so on me and maybe a little bit of my driving style as well. Thank you again to the Galaxy Cup Series admins here, Josh Coppernoll, Kevin Steele, those guys. Demare second bottom. They run a good ship here. And huge shout out to you guys, Carlos, Andre, Kenneth. Thank you for coming on and broadcasting the rest of the season with us. Nice to have a team in the broadcast booth again. And shout out to everyone that tuned in tonight here on the broadcast. I can't thank both people that I know, my family and stuff like that, enough for tuning in, and everyone else. It helps us out with making sure we can put on entertainment for you guys. So thank you guys, and I hope to talk to y'all next week.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and of course we appreciate the compliment, and we're very excited to cover the rest of this Galaxy Cup Series. A great league that we saw here tonight in Michigan, and of course we thank you for putting on a great performance out there on track and getting us on the edge of our seats with a couple of the drivers in the short runs and using that draft. So of course we thank you for being here and taking the time to talk with us. We hope to see you down at Watkins Glen. I know that's going to be a whole nother game. I know that's going to be a whole nother track to approach, but we hope to see you there next week and pretty much throughout the rest of the season fighting for a championship.
Hey, I appreciate it, Kenneth, Carlos, Andre. Thank you guys.
Congratulations on the good run, man.
Eric Wineland out of the booth. He tops off the final driver to be interviewed here on 3 Wide TV. And Andre, what a race we saw here in Michigan. Very interesting to say the least. Very long race, the 200 lapper. We saw the attrition play a factor. We saw early yellows go into, as you see, the race results. So we'll quickly go over that before we kind of go over our final thoughts. Bryson Ixabal, of course, you saw in the interview, takes his 10th win of the season. He picks it up here in Michigan. Dalton Mobley finishes second. Promising run for him. He finishes 9 seconds back. Then Eric Wineland, Kevin Steele, Jack Durham finishes in the top 5. Then Brandon Pearson to 6th. Denny Myatt 7th. Dakota Knoll 8th. Brian Mabry 9th. And Damaris Hickenbottom finishes 10th. Those drivers from 6th to 10th all the way down a lap down. Andre?
I mean, it had it all. That race was crazy. You had 3 wide, 4 wide action, door to door. You had pit strategy. You had close stage finishes. You can't ask for anything better. The league put on a great show. I can't compliment the admins and the drivers enough for, putting this together and just letting this happen every week. It's a great time, and I hope the fans at home enjoyed it as much as we did, because I got to tell you, we loved it.
For sure. And here is the rest of the race results. There's Randy Drumhiller 11th, Cameron Stone, Jonathan Alardo picked up a good amount and then had that issue on pit road, finishes 13th, 47 laps down. Then Ryan Samuelson, Preston McRae, those two not having the nights they desperately wanted for the point standings. And then Joseph Lester, Chris Wood, who were involved in incidents, and then Joseph Shiles and Zach Probst finishes 20th. And we'll loop all the way back to the drivers of finishing. I believe that's pretty much the rest of this race. Here's the final 6 cars to finish this race. Wayne Grass, who got caught up in an unfortunate incident, saw him up front early. So did Cam Caldwell. Both unfortunate ends to their nights. Jason Taylor, 23rd. Josh Coppernall, 24th, who we had an interview with in the 04. Gotten involved early, finishes 158 laps down. 25th, Christopher Hammond finishes the race in 26th. Finishes out the field. And Andre, next week, first road course apart from what we saw at Sonoma. And of course, we still got more road course racing to do when we approach the Roval down at the round of 12. Andre, is there something really to expect? Is there some anticipation? Is there some nervousness going into the next race at Watkins Glen? Could be a great race to preview what we could see in the playoffs come to Roval.
Oh, I think the drivers are definitely nervous looking forward. It's going to be one of the most challenging tracks of the season. I mean, stock cars and road courses are an interesting combo, and you're going to see a lot of good battles, I think. I know for a fact there's a few drivers in this league that are fantastic on road courses, and it's going to be absolutely fun. It's also going to be challenging for the drivers in the sense that you're not going to see as many full course yellows on a road course. So if you make a small mistake, like a single car spin, or you happen to overshoot the corner and go off the track, you're not going to get that caution to rely on. So you have to be as consistent as you could possibly be. So it's going to be tough.
Certainly going to be an intense race next week. Of course, if you want to catch that, that'll be next Saturday, live from Watkins Glen, New York, and that'll be right here in the 3-wide TV. It's going to be a lot of fun for the Galaxy Cup Series, and of course, we'll definitely be here along for the ride with you in the booth and covering the race. Big thank you to the Galaxy Cup Series for providing a great amount of action that we saw here tonight. And of course, thank you to SimTV for providing a good camera package, and it allowed us to capture all these virtual cars around this 2-mile oval. Special thanks to them for providing that. And of course, a special thanks to all the drivers who put on a show here tonight. Very, very grateful for them for putting on a great show that we could talk about during this broadcast, and hopefully through the rest of the season onto the championship race. So for everyone here at 3Y TV, for Carlos Acosta for pushing the buttons up in the booth and making this broadcast possible, for Andre Grandbush, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying good night from Michigan. We'll head to the Monster Mile next week. Not next week. It'll be the Watkins Glen next week. On to Dover, Daytona. We'll see you in the weeks ahead. Coming up to the playoffs, championship will loom across the horizon. Good night, and stay
Good night,
safe.
everybody.
See ya!